morning, Canada. Welcome back to another episode of Question Period, the last question period of season 2024. Today is December 17th, and we are at the season finale. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in for however long you've been tuning in. I've personally been doing this for a few years now, and I love every second of it. I hate not getting answers. I hate not getting my way, because we'd all like to see an election happen sooner than later, of course. But nonetheless, what we've got going on here, what we've built together on House of Canada has been absolutely incredible. And I just want to thank every single one of you for tuning in to the live streams, tuning in to the videos, engaging in the comment section, engaging in the live chat of the streams, liking the videos, right, and subscribing, right, in case you haven't done those. I'd appreciate you taking the time right now to do that and just participating. I know not everyone can watch this every day. People got lives, people got jobs to go to. I get that, but I have, the opportunity here to be able to stream what's going on, and we've got a community around it. So whether you tune in live or whether you watch the VOD, which is the video on demand, so after the video, the live stream has been posted and it's no longer live, I appreciate every single one of you. We've reached on Mistersunshinebaby, which, even though this is the same person, they're completely different channels. I would consider one focuses on like Canadian news, MSB, and this is just focused on Parliament. But on MSB, we've got 433,720 subscribers. And on this channel, House of Canada, every single one of you that are watching right now have participated in this channel, reaching 127,262 subscribers. And then there's also the House of Canada Clips channel, which is at 12,408 subscribers. 12,409 subscribers. So I want to thank every one of you for participating in this community here on House of Canada, whether you're a transplant from Mistersunshinebaby and you like watching both of those channels, and especially if you are actively engaged or subscribed and, like the videos on the other channels like House of Canada Clips and Jasper's Son, which used to be Mr. Sunshine Extra. And I don't really know what I'm doing with that one, but I'm having some fun with it at least. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the season finale of 2024. Yesterday, to be honest, have probably been the best day to end it on, because that was an absolute shit show, and it's like the cliffhanger at the end of some good or bad TV show or movie, whatever you want to consider it. The worst political day in Canadian history, and the Prime Minister steering the ship, or driving the bus, as Pierre Poilievre now likes to say, went AWOL. He literally hid from reporters. He took tunnels around Ottawa and back doors to sneak in and out of certain places to avoid being caught on camera. Now, he couldn't avoid it forever. He eventually did get caught by some cameras, and he just waved and smiled for a second and then effed off in his car. And how did Justin Trudeau end the day yesterday after, again, I can't emphasize this enough, the worst political day in Canadian history, not recent Canadian history, ever. Like, Justin Trudeau's father, Papa Trudeau, was a very bad politician, but at least he had the audacity to say, okay, things are getting bad, everyone wants him to resign, okay, I'm out, kaputs. But Trudeau, he's a different breed. Right? Trudeau Jr., we don't know what the hell's wrong with him. We got no idea. Is he an alien? Is he a robot? Is he dysfunctional? Maybe all of the above. I have absolutely no idea. But again, to reiterate, the worst political day in fucking Canadian history. And he ends the day off by going to basically the Met Gala for Liberals, where they offer seats to go and admission, probably at $1,000 a piece. They were passing around hors d'oeuvres and champagne at our expense, taxpayers' expense. And he did speak there, in case you missed it. He did speak. And what he had to say probably won't surprise you, but it might at the same time. He didn't acknowledge a single thing that happened during the course of yesterday. He didn't acknowledge the fact that his loyal servant, Chrystia Freeland, said, "You're on your own now, buddy." Nothing. He didn't acknowledge the fact that his new finance minister is now Dominic LeBlanc, not to be confused with Joey Tribbiani. That's a moot point. Cal's opinion. No. He focused on the fact that the Liberals need to raise more money to take on Pierre Poilievre because Pierre is able to raise money. Thank you. Do you mind turning the furnace down a little bit? Thank you. My wife just brought me coffee. There you go. Usually I mute myself, but it's the last day. Hey, I'll live on the edge. I don't think my wife for bringing me a coffee live on camera because I'm risky today. I'm risky. Not as risky as Trudeau, though. Trudeau is a sociopath, a psychopath. Now, I can't officially acknowledge that. I can't diagnose him, but I can see behavior, and I can see how he talks to people, how he chooses to ignore certain things. And even CBC yesterday said, we don't know what the heck he's doing, but this is unusual. Like everybody at some point in their life, you face something that's uncomfortable and you pretend like it's not there. You're like, oh, I'm just going to smile and get through the day. Or maybe you have something that something sad that's going on in your life, and professionally speaking or with friends and family, you have to pretend like that didn't affect you. So you put on a smile and you just continue on with your day. Right? Old schoolers call it sucking it up and grabbing life by the bootstraps, but call it whatever you want. Everyone at some point in their life has done it or will do it to a certain amount of times. What Justin Trudeau did yesterday is next level. Like, again, hiding from reporters, hiding from the press, hiding from any accountability. That's not what a leader should be doing. A leader shouldn't be running around hiding. A leader should be taking the questions and answering and putting Canadians at ease and not leaving everybody in a free fall panic. And that's what happened yesterday. Everybody, the media, the news cycle, Americans were like, what the heck's going on with our 51st state? Canadians are going, oh my God, what's going on with Trudeau? Everybody, even Donald Trump has now officially commented. And we're going to take a look at that in a few moments. He commented on what just happened with Chrystia Freeland, right? And Justin Trudeau. Like, this is bananas. And we still, on the season finale, aren't going to hear from, unfortunately, the main character himself, Justin Trudeau. We're not hearing from our leader. So who are we going to hear from? Well, Pierre Poilievre did a phenomenal speech earlier this morning. Actually, not too long ago, 45 minutes, 30 minutes ago, something like that. So we're going to take a look at that in a little bit. We're going to be taking a look at what's going on with our new $5 bill. We're going to be taking a look at what's going on with Canada Post. We're going to be taking a look at the fact that the media is calling on Justin Trudeau to resign. That political analysts, not YouTubers, political analysts, the professionals are saying that Trudeau isn't going to be around for the next election. We're going to take a look at quite a few things before question period actually begins. But if you're waiting for Justin Trudeau to show up today, his staff have already confirmed that he will not be here. So the show must go on. We're going to continue to take a look at what's going on in the news. But boy, oh boy, what a way to end 2024, eh? Let's get some W's in the chat, folks. I couldn't have done yesterday without you guys. I'll tell you that. We did about 7-hour live stream here on this channel, and then I shut everything down, and I was like, all right, finally I can get up and stretch my legs. And then, boom, Trudeau goes to that gala, that fundraiser gala. I was like, turn all the lights and cameras on. Welcome back, everybody. But I did it on Mistersunshinebaby. That was about an hour. So we did 7 hours and 40 minutes of live streaming yesterday. Quite the day. That took a bit of a toll on me. But hey, I'm not going to complain about how difficult streaming was, because that would be a silly thing to do, right? Unless you guys are okay with me complaining about it, then yeah, I'm a little beat up over that. I'm a little sore. You know, my back's a little achy. I'm just kidding. I mean, it is, but we're not going to complain about streaming. What we are going to do, though, is recognize the fact that people are putting W's in the chat. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for liking the stream. I see that there's a lot of viewers in here, and there's a lot less likes on the stream. So in the spirit of ho, ho, ho of Christmas and my birthday, by the way, I am born on December 25th. Yeah, in case you didn't know that. I share the birthday with the devil, Justin Trudeau, who's also born on December 25th. My life was great until I found that out last year. Ever since then, that kind of sucks. But nonetheless, I would appreciate for my birthday and in the spirit of Christmas that you take the time now to hit the like button. It's free to do. We've had a phenomenal year. We've built an incredible community, and it helps fight climate change for all I care. Who gives a crap what the like button does? I like to see more likes, and that's all that matters, right? It actually helps grow the stream. That's why yesterday's stream has 198,000 views, because a lot of people liked it. A lot of people want to see what happens. But let's get into today's video, shall we? First, though, I will recognize some of the super chats, because yesterday there were a lot of super chats, and I didn't recognize any of them, and I very much apologize. Still, I apologize for that. Rick Parker with the 279, no message attached, but thank you, Rick. Guy on a Moose with the membership, thank you, Guy on a Moose. And 3CGC with the 5, saying Justin Trudeau's itinerary says the Prime Minister will attend the National Caucus holiday party and will deliver remarks. So again, he will not be in question period, and the remarks that he delivers will likely not have anything to do with yesterday's events. It'll likely have everything to do with the fact that the Liberals need to focus on raising more money from the airheaded elites, and that's it. That's all. Okay. And then we have Marge Zandbergen with the 5 saying, cheers. Hopefully he will give us an election. Here's to hoping. Well, I think we're all hoping for that, but I don't think anything's going to happen today. All right. Without further ado, folks, let's get into today's video. Starting off with, I guess you could say, somewhat of good news, or really good news. Last year, or this year, I forget, the days and weeks just fly by, Justin Trudeau updated the Canadian passport, and he took off Terry Fox and added himself as at his cottage being a little boy or something like that. It's kind of weird and extremely controversial what Justin Trudeau did with the passports, but he took off Terry Fox from the passports, which is pretty nasty. And now, I don't know if it's his decision, it's somebody's decision to add Terry Fox to be featured on the next Canadian $5 bill. Also known as the $1 American. Because our dollar's so bad. If I don't laugh, I'll cry.
Canadian hero Terry Fox is going to be the new face of our $5 bill. The news was announced today during the federal government's fall economic statement. Fox will replace Sir Wilfrid Laurier on the bill. Port Coquitlam's Mayor Brad West saluted the man he calls a hometown hero, posting on social media that Fox's courage and determination continue to inspire and unite not just his hometown of Port Coquitlam, but people from all over the world. Fox's Marathon of Hope in the 80s inspired generations and has raised millions for cancer research.
Yeah. We should be recognizing Terry Fox. We should never forget who Terry Fox is. He's a staple to Canada. We love Terry Fox. In fact, put him back on the passport and certainly add him to the $5 bill. That's something that Canadians can agree unanimously with. And anyone who doesn't agree with it, get out. Get out. Next up, let's take a look here at Canada Post and their recent update. So the strike has gone on, or I guess did go on, past tense, for like 6 odd weeks. And that's because Canada Post was asking for this much, and the government was willing to give them this much, and they weren't able to meet anywhere in the middle. So the government said, okay, specifically Steve McKinnon, the labor minister, said, I'm using my emergency powers to order everyone back to work. Negotiations can still continue until May of 2025, but we are so far apart in negotiations that you all need to get back to work, which is insane to say. And this was a very, very harmful strike to Canadians. I mean, right at Christmas time, anyone who's delivering a package or ordering a package that's being shipped by Canada Post, they're not getting it before Christmas. I mean, they're back to work, but no one's been delivered their letter mail to their mailbox of pamphlets and flyers and stuff like that. Everyone's waiting by the window going, where's my mail in my mailbox? Like, I'm so excited. I haven't seen it in over a month. And so it's just an absolute shit show. But hey, they're back to work. So maybe we'll eventually get all of our mail sometime next year. Let's take a look at what's going on.
And CTV's Regan Hasegawa is standing by in Langley for more. Good morning, Regan. What's the latest where you are with this?
Good morning. Actually, it's just after 7 o'clock local time this morning, and we know that Canada Post operations will be beginning again, ramping up at 8 o'clock this morning. But these postal workers are holding the line until 7:59 this morning, holding their ground, wearing their signs, continuing the picket line that they've been out here for more than a month now. They've been telling us they're very frustrated with the federal government's decision to intervene. They feel like their rights have been trampled on. They want to be able to strike and to bargain, and they feel essentially that the federal government has taken the wind out of their sails, the power out of their bargaining, and they're very frustrated about how things have been going forward.
Let's just talk about the backlog as well, because that's, of course, a very major part of this. 1 month of strike, millions and millions of parcels and packages that are lying.
That's right, Akshay, and it's going to take several weeks for that backlog to be cleared. According to Canada Post, people can expect those delays to continue until the end of 2024 and into January 2025 as well. It will take quite some time to get through all of that mail. We know that Canada Post will not be picking up or receiving any new items until Thursday, and then international mail won't be ramping up again until December 23rd. We're also expecting to see some changes of hours of operation at post office as well. So a lot of fallout from this situation, a month worth of mail being stuck and not being able to be moved, being left in limbo. We also know that the business community has been deeply impacted by this strike action. I spoke with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business yesterday, and it believes that $1.6 billion has been lost to small and medium-sized businesses during this dispute.
All right, CTV's Regan.
But the Liberal government cares about small to medium-sized businesses, right? They said that during the blip, and they've said that up until today. We care about small to medium-sized businesses. What do you mean a $1 billion loss? No. The Liberals, they care with their hearts, right? Their hearts and their minds. So that makes up for the $1 billion loss to small to medium-sized businesses. Because after all, Canada Post is government funded and government regulated, which is probably now a good time to mention that I think we need to privatize Canada Post and get it away from government ASAP. I have no idea how that works, but I just know that I'm on board with saying that. And I see a lot of people saying that, and I agree. So join me in the chat and say, let's privatize Canada Post. So that was one update video. And then a little bit later, later this morning, you had this update.
Canada Post workers are back on the job, and they have a big job ahead of them today. As of 8 o'clock, the picket lines came down right across the country. Many employees went inside to begin their shift, and this is something they were told to do by their union president. Overnight, we heard from the president putting a letter out to unionized workers saying they should comply with the order from the Canada Industrial Relations Board. That board said over the weekend that the two sides, the union and Canada Post, are at an impasse. They're unable to reach a deal, so the order was given. It's back to work. We had a chance to speak with some employees who were out on the picket lines first thing this morning before heading in to start their shift. Here's more from them.
It was a bit different this time around because at the end of the day, they also laid off full-time members, which has never been done before. So that's when we knew that, well, you're not going to deal with us fairly at all.
No, so it's extremely greasy. It's extremely greasy. I mean, when you take a look at what Canada Post was asking, it was kind of outrageous. They were asking like 29% raise over the next 4 years to combat inflation. That's bananas. That's way above and beyond inflation. That's like, phew, that's reaching for the stars. But hey, try and get it. Then you had Canada Post retaliate, or I guess the government essentially retaliate and start to fire people that were on strike. And they said that moving forward, we don't want to hire people full time. We're only going to hire people as temporary workers, part-time workers, with a maximum hours of 8 hours per week. So yeah, it's kind of greasy. Like both sides of this, lots of blood has been shed, metaphorically speaking, when it comes to this.
It was an unprecedented thing for them to do, and of course we did take them to the Labour Board in that instance, and we did get mediation. They laid off members are coming back to work, but as soon as they did that, we realized you're not going to deal with this fairly at all, and they were counting on the government, and the government did, it wasn't fair what they did.
Now, the union that represents about 55,000 postal workers says they are planning to appeal this move by the board. That's likely to be heard in mid-January. But again, employees back at work today. This is going to be a very big job, too. We've heard from Canada Post saying that there are a lot of packages that they have to sift through, packages that have been sitting in facilities like this one behind me here for several weeks. They also have to go out and pick up mail that was likely delivered ahead of the strike action. They're not actually going to pick up any new mail until Thursday. They also warned people, if you put an email in the mailbox as of today, it is unlikely it will make it in time for Christmas. Over to you.
So there you go. I mean, people are going to be waiting for the packages for a very long time. I still have a lot of the sticker orders that people have ordered, along pretty much every single sticker order that was placed since the strike. Since right when the strike was announced, I haven't been able to ship out. So if you're waiting for your stickers, I apologize. It's been out of my control. And even if I were to put it in the mailbox today, it's like you just heard, it's going to sit there. But if you would like to order some stickers that you won't see until 2025, then by all means, click the link in the description and use code SUNSHINE on any of the 2 sticker packs and get yourself 15% off. Canada Post, for freaking crying out loud. They've just screwed over so many people. And then speaking of screwed over people, we now have to take a look at what Tom Mulcair is saying about Justin Trudeau. No, I don't like Tom Mulcair. I don't have much respect for him, but every now and then he drops some decent nuggets. And in this video, you're taking a look at him go back and forth with CTV and say that Trudeau's not likely to lead the Liberals into the next campaign, which, that's a crazy thing for an analyst to say, especially somebody who was on the inside like Tom Mulcair, but I think it makes sense. Let's take a look.
A very intense and fast-moving day yesterday. Justin Trudeau today continuing to face calls to resign, but it still doesn't look like he will answer to those calls. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are he's buying himself a little bit of time. This, as you correctly say, is the last day of Parliament. They don't come back till January 27th. Between now and then, he can take his own time to come up with a proper decision. I think that one of the obvious opportunities for him is later in January for him to pull the emergency brake, which is called prorogation. You basically dissolve Parliament. You have to you come back when you have a throne speech, but in between the two, well, perhaps the Liberals could have a leadership race, something like that. I think that that's where we're headed, Akshay, because even though Mr. Trudeau has yet to say that he's resigning, I think it's quite clear that he's not leading the Liberals into the next campaign.
I disagree. I think that Trudeau is going to lead the Liberals into the next campaign. And this is the double-edged sword, because we want Trudeau out. We don't want him to, have any more power. But in order for him to have a catastrophic loss, it has to be Trudeau that runs in the next election. So that's kind of the double-edged sword. So we need Trudeau to run. That's preferable for him to run because he's going to get the worst results out of any single Liberal. Yeah, that's just my opinion, guys. Let me know down below what you guys have to say. But I know that I think that a lot of people can agree that literally anybody else, any other Liberal, even if it's Dominic LeBlanc, might actually poll better than Justin Trudeau. So we don't want that. We don't want that.
How can you do that when very few of your ministers support you, and now close to 50 members of your caucus are asking you to leave? So I don't think that it's realistic that he's going to lead the Liberals into the next campaign, but he's bought himself a bit of time. Likely prorogation, leadership, resignation. That's probably
that's the other thing too, is I don't know why he's bringing up prorogation. They're done. They're done. Today's the last day. Today's the last day. Then school is not in session. Parliament is no longer in session. So what are you going to prorogue? It doesn't make any sense, Tom. There's nothing to prorogue. Everybody's gone. They're home. They're eating. They're whining and dining. There's no proroguing. There's no need for it. Nobody's going to go back into Parliament until middle of January. So I disagree that Trudeau's going to prorogue. He doesn't give a shit. He's not even there today. He doesn't care. Oh, let it be whispers online. He doesn't care at all. He's going to come back in January and make some big announcement, and he's not going to acknowledge how Freeland left. He's not going to give it any time of day. That's my prediction.
You're right also that there were some very bizarre mixed signals from different parties. I think that Poilievre had a very good day. He adopted a very statesman-like tone, very prime ministerial, went hard, as his usual self, but I mean, he was very, very controlled. And I think that people appreciated that and picked up on it. Mr. Singh's musings were very difficult to follow. On the one hand, he said he wants Mr. Trudeau to resign, which would indicate that he wants an election or a change of government. And then in the next breath, he said, well, he hasn't decided whether or not he's going to continue to vote confidence in Justin Trudeau. So it was very difficult to follow.
Yeah, let's talk about Jagmeet Singh a little bit more, because we know how Pierre Poilievre also came after him in terms of why he continues to support this particular government. So in your understanding, what's your read really? Is Jagmeet Singh wanting to support a Liberal government and not the leadership of Justin Trudeau? Or what really is the case? Is he calling for a new election? And if he is calling for the new election, is he himself really prepared for all of this?
Well, that's part of the ambiguity of his statements yesterday. And, you know, how can he continue to support Trudeau at all? It was interesting that his very experienced House leader, Peter Julian, was saying something different when he was giving interviews later in the day. He was saying, no, come spring, we're going to be willing to vote no confidence in the Liberals. Well, why put that condition on it? If you're going to vote no confidence in a government that clearly doesn't deserve confidence, why do you keep stalling? And that's what Canadians are asking of Mr. Singh right now. Between the Liberals and the NDP, by the way, Akshay, it should be borne in mind that they have a total of about 40% of the Canadian electorate, but it's almost perfectly evenly split right now. Quebec is a completely different tale with the Bloc. For now, the Bloc is really riding high in the polls, but that could change rapidly, because the 20-some-odd% lead that the Conservatives had could easily provoke a big change in Quebec. We've seen this many times in the past. A lot of people just change sides when they realize there's going to be a massive majority. It's the behavior of the people in Canada who are in a minority status. They want to make sure that they're at the table if a new government comes in, and so that could play out in favor of Poilievre as well.
And while Justin Trudeau, of course, continues to face these calls to resign, he has sworn in a new finance minister, Dominic LeBlanc, taking over the file with a ballooning deficit like we heard yesterday and the tariff threats.
Okay, I found the movie. I figured out what the movie was, because when I was streaming yesterday and they were showing the swearing-in ceremony, I said, this looks like that movie with Jim Carrey in it. I forget the movie. Son of a gun. It'll come back to me in a second.
Looming over the country. Your thoughts on the way forward for the new finance minister?
Well, it's all going to depend whether Trudeau, in the inevitable cabinet shuffle.
Fun with Dick and Jane. There you go. I had to freaking Google it, for crying out loud. Jim Carrey played in this movie called Fun with Dick and Jane. I'm sorry to interrupt. If you want to see what's happening, just give me a moment. In the movie Fun with Dick and Jane, he was just like a mid-level management person, okay? Jim Carrey was just a mid-level management, worked on level 7 out of a tall story building. And then one day he gets a call to go all the way to the tippity top. And all these CEOs like, yeah, hey, buddy, hey, Dick, right? That's his name, Dick and Jane. Hey, Dick, we've been watching. You've been doing a great job. You want a promotion? You want to represent our company? Here, go and give this speech on Fox News or Business, whatever, right? And he goes and gives a speech live on the air about on the business channels. And while he's giving that speech, the stock is plummeting. And it turns out that the company's going bankrupt. And they used him, Jim Carrey, right? Dick, as the scapegoat. And that whole meeting yesterday, the whole swearing in ceremony, dude, it was weird. Like, it was like a weird ass formality. It just reminded me so much of that movie. It doesn't make any sense. Trudeau was silent the entire day, and then he's standing in the back going, like, what the hell's going on? These people are weird. They're weird. So if you've ever thought Trudeau is a sociopath, yep, yesterday was real confirmation.
Keeps Dominic LeBlanc in finance. I mean, if you look, he's a lawyer. He's gone to a good American university, but he doesn't know the first thing about finance. So Mr. Trudeau was signaling yesterday his childhood friend, Justin Trudeau, is actually going to be able to maneuver these complex issues of finance. He has been playing one of the lead roles in dealing with the American. At the same time, it is impossible for her to separate herself completely from the many years of Trudeau mistakes on the economy that all Canadians are going to be paying for generations.
All right, interesting times indeed. We'll leave it at that for now. Tom Mulcair, CTV News political commentator.
Yeah, interesting times, bizarre times, chaotic times. I don't know. The whole government, the whole spectrum of politics right now is just absurd. Just absurd. It's so gross and disingenuous, right? But hey, that's my opinion. Let's take a look now at another mainstream media video that is pretty much calling on Justin Trudeau to step down.
Justin Trudeau has survived his toughest day as Prime Minister, with Chrystia Freeland writing a scathing public resignation letter, leading to other caucus colleagues to call on Trudeau to quit. Our Mackenzie Gray joins us now from Ottawa to break down all the political drama, the turmoil, as well as what's next for Trudeau. So, Mac, a lot to unpack here. The Prime Minister spoke to Liberal supporters last night, his first public comment since Freeland's resignation. What did he have to say?
It was a pretty shocking speech, I've got to say, Miranda. Justin Trudeau basically gave the regular stump speech that we in Ottawa hear all the time, highlighting what the Liberals would say were achievements, passing things like dental care and really trying to dunk on the Conservatives. But he made only very limited passing references to what had happened yesterday, saying it was an eventful day and kind of thanked supporters for showing up, even when it's, difficult times for the Liberal parties. Didn't thank Chrystia Freeland, didn't mention Chrystia Freeland, didn't talk about his political future at all. He basically drove right by the massive political earthquake, the political missile that Chrystia Freeland shot directly at Justin Trudeau yesterday. No mention of it at all. So really no formal statement from the Prime Minister in terms of what his intentions are going forward when there are a number of caucus members calling for him to quit. And no thanks or any recognition of all of Chrystia Freeland after she was the central cabinet minister in implementing his agenda over the 9 years he's been Prime Minister.
All right, so Mac, with Trudeau facing those renewed calls,
she was the finance minister. She was the deputy prime minister. So if something were to happen to Justin Trudeau where he couldn't do his job, right? Like if something, terminal were to happen to Trudeau, she was going to basically inherit that position. And she was the second in command. And she stepped away from all of that. That's how bad it is. Trudeau doesn't allow anyone to do their job how they see fit. I'm not suggesting that Chrystia Freeland was a good finance minister at all, but Trudeau didn't let her be a finance minister. Trudeau forced her to have certain talking points, to do certain things. He controlled and manipulated her to every capacity. And so I guess she just got fed up. That's kind of the unanimous understanding of everything that's happening. So I don't like to say this, and you'll not hear me say this ever, I don't think, other than right now, but I almost have to give props. I don't want to almost have to give props. I actually give props to Chrystia Freeland for stepping away from Justin Trudeau. Like, good job on doing that. Everything else you've done, I don't agree with, but good job on doing that.
From Liberal MPs for him to quit. Where exactly does that push stand?
Well, that was definitely a topic of conversation yesterday when the Liberals had a kind of an emergency caucus meeting. It was pretty remarkable. It wasn't in the normal room that it normally takes place in. So for a decent chunk of time, cameras were able to see right into the room. There's a huge glass window in front of it. So our cameras caught Justin Trudeau talking for at least 3 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. The Liberals wisened up a little later and put barriers in place so we couldn't continue to see in. But that's going to be an ongoing question going forward. We've seen a number of the MPs that were part of kind of this caucus revolt that we talked about a lot last month, rising up again, putting out more formal statements this time saying, hey, I was one of the 23 MPs that called on the Prime Minister to quit previously. I agree now that he really needs to go after what's happened with Chrystia Freeland. But, when we talked about that before, one of the things that we always said is, well, where does this go? Until there are senior cabinet ministers that join the call for Mr. Trudeau to quit, it doesn't seem likely that he's going to leave. While Chrystia Freeland didn't do that yesterday in her letter saying, Justin Trudeau, you need to resign, she certainly sent a very stern message across the bow talking about political gimmicks, saying that they didn't see eye to eye, in essence, on how to deal with the economy and how to deal with Trump. It wasn't a clear sign that Mr. Trudeau needs to go, but it certainly was the starter's gun and Chrystia Freeland's future leadership bid. One of the issues that she likely would have had without doing something like this is, basically she was very close to the Prime Minister. She was the Finance Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister. I think yesterday was an attempt for her on one level to distance herself from Justin Trudeau. The key thing I'm watching for in this situation are any of the other potential leadership candidates going to follow suit with Chrystia Freeland. Melanie Joly, François-Philippe Champagne, Anita Anand, the three people I'm looking at. Do they stay on board with Mr. Trudeau or do they follow with Ms. Freeland and leave cabinet? If that happens, it will be increasingly untenable that Mr. Trudeau would be able to stay on.
All right, so Mac, with the opposition calling for either Trudeau to quit or call an election, plus the internal pressure from his own MPs, what is the strategy for the Prime Minister to stay on and effectively govern?
Well, the first thing that Mr. Trudeau is going to do is try and just bunker down. Today is the last day of the House of Commons until a 6-week break in terms of the sitting schedule. The only thing on his agenda today, again, is another speech to Liberal supporters. It's basically a Liberal Christmas party tonight. He's going to talk at that. Would be an opportunity for him to mention anything about his future or Ms. Freeland at this opportunity. But until then, basically it's Christmas break. So he's going to have time where he doesn't have to have a press conference he doesn't want to. We're not going to be running around trying to talk to MPs or trying to talk to him in the House of Commons. So there is some political breathing room where he'll seemingly try and take that time and try to be able to recover. I think yesterday there were two clear signs that, at least in the short term, he intends to stay on. He appointed Dominic LeBlanc as the finance minister very quickly, and they did put out the fall economic statement, which does have some measures the Liberals would like to pass in there, $1.3 billion to deal with the border for the RCMP and the CBSA. But the idea of that getting through Parliament at this point in time seems very unlikely. We've heard from the Conservatives and the Bloc both coming out saying we need to have an election now. Of course, the Conservatives have been saying that for a while, but that's a different tone from the Bloc. The NDP was a bit more convoluted. Jagmeet Singh coming out saying that Justin Trudeau needs to resign, but then wouldn't say if they'd vote non-confidence against the Liberals, just saying they have all their options on the table. So it really will come down to, once again, can Justin Trudeau cut a deal with Jagmeet Singh to try and get anything through the House of Commons? It's been a real challenge. The only thing they've been able to do since the summer, essentially, was that GST holiday. That's the only money bill the Liberals have been able to pass. And it seems increasingly unlikely they'll be able to get anything through, which just puts even more political pressure on Mr. Trudeau to be able to deal with not only the people in Caucus who are frustrated with him, but try to get anything done politically in the face of these 25% tariffs that Donald Trump keeps bringing up. And he did talk about Chrystia Freeland too on Truth Social last night. He basically said Justin Trudeau made the right decision. He did not like Chrystia Freeland, and again went at that motif of Canada being the 51st state, something we're going to, I think, continue to have from Donald Trump as he trolls the Prime Minister pretty consistently.
All right, well, what a way to end 2024. Mac, as always, thank you so much.
To say the least.
And we appreciate it.
I don't know if Justin Trudeau can pull himself out of this hole. I feel like he's dug himself real deep into the waters now, and I don't see him getting out of this. I don't. Even if time goes on, we all have Christmas holidays. We're going to resume and talk about politics again heavily in the new year, partly through January. Towards the end of January is when they at least go back into Parliament. So there's going to be a big lull for the next, almost month and a half. But I don't know if that's really going to be enough time for people to just forget. I actually don't think people are going to forget. I don't think people are going to want to forget. The cycle of talking about it might come down. But when the cycle picks up again, people are going to be chatting about it, chatting about Trudeau's incompetence and how he has to resign. I mean, you've heard the Bloc call for an election. You've said, even your Jagmeet Singh has even said, I know, I roll my eyes too, but even he said Trudeau needs to call an election. Like, okay, buddy, we get it. We get it. So I think it's just a massive shit show right now, but we're going to have to wait and see how things play out. Next up, let's take a look here at people in Freeland's riding and how they actually support Freeland stepping down. That's quite interesting.
So let's hear now in terms of voters in Chrystia Freeland's own riding. She was the first star candidate Justin Trudeau recruited to his party at the time. It had third party standing back in 2013, but he brought her in and, of course, was elected in 2015 and has risen to the top ranks within the party and within cabinet. The voters in University Rosedale have been supporting her all that time, and Megan Fitzpatrick this morning is in that riding to talk to people. Good morning, Megan. What is the latest that you're hearing today?
Well, Heather, people here are telling me that they were very surprised to hear the news yesterday that she had quit cabinet. She is staying on as the MP. She indicated in her resignation letter that she does intend on running in the next election. But people here saying they are sorry to see her go from the cabinet table. But some constituents saying they think she made the right decision, made the right move for her and for her own political career. I've also been getting reaction to how she quit cabinet, what she said in that resignation letter. One resident here saying they thought that letter was spicy, another describing it as a well-written, well-crafted letter. Here's a bit more of what I'm hearing from residents in this riding.
I was surprised, but at the same time, I think a lot of stuff is going on in Ottawa. It's probably pretty dramatic right now. I don't know. I don't know what's going to come next. We'll see.
I think she made the decision that was right for her.
It sounds like a Freeland supporter.
Of what's to come, and I mean, I like her. I think she's kind of ballsy. So, I think it was a good move on her part.
The government in general has been a little bit of a mess overall. I don't enjoy that.
I'm sorry she was boxed into that corner and had to resort to political strategy to save her career. So we'll see how it all comes out in the wash. But quite a surprise.
Many people wondering about that question, Heather, of what comes next. Some people wondering what comes next for Freeland, but also for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Some people here saying they think it's time for him to go. They described the Liberal Party as a sinking ship and said that's why they think it was the right move for Freeland to abandon it. Well, she didn't quite abandon the party, though, as we know. Again, she just quit cabinet. She does intend on staying on as an MP. But some constituents here wondering, Heather, if quitting cabinet but staying on as an MP is an indication that she intends on running for leader of the Liberal Party if that opportunity becomes available. And some people here telling me they would like to see her run for leader of the Liberal Party. Some saying they have that she has been very loyal to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, that they think the Liberal Party needs to do some serious re-examination in terms of where it's headed. So that's a little bit about of what we've been hearing so far, Heather, but definitely the overall impression here was shock and surprise to that news yesterday that she was quitting as Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister.
Yeah, those people looked and sounded exactly what you would suspect to be a Freeland supporter, didn't they? I hate to say it, but Freeland is probably the most popular and well-liked Liberal, at least, and that's very small pickings, right? Because Liberals, we don't like any of them, but within the Liberals, Freeland certainly has gained a lot of notoriety for sticking it to Justin Trudeau. Think about it. There's like 40 of them. There's 40 or more rebels that are like, oh, we need to stick it to Trudeau. We got to sign a letter. We got to get him to resign. And Freeland did the biggest mic drop yesterday without even saying a word. And it's insane. Like, again, it's kind of badass what she did. I don't like Freeland. I don't agree with pretty much everything she's done and said politically. But yesterday, man, props to her. Even though I said I'd only say it once. Look at me. I said it twice. In the same day. Yikes, I got to cut back on that. I might start to come off as a Freeland supporter. Wouldn't want that. Okay, speaking of Freeland here, we're going to take a look at this. Trump calls Freeland toxic and says she will not be missed. Oh, Trump. Never a dull moment for Canadians and Americans, or for Americans to comment on Canadians. And finally, we're going to wrap things up here before we get into the question period stuff with breakfast television. that says, again, Donald Trump reacts to Freeland resigning from cabinet. I mean, this isn't good. Canada has become a laughingstock. At least Trudeau and Freeland have.
9:30 Eastern here on BT. Welcome back. A government at a crossroads is coming to grips with the sudden resignation of Chrystia Freeland just hours before she was supposed to deliver a key fiscal update in the House of Commons. Let's bring back our Parliament Hill reporter Glenn McGregor, joining us live now at this most consequential Canadian political moment. Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning, Gary.
So it was kind of a blast from Chrystia Freeland's past yesterday because Donald Trump not passing up the opportunity to kind of mock her resignation.
Yeah, lots of reaction yesterday to this stunning day in Canadian politics. But Donald Trump has entered the chat, as the kids say, with a late night post on Truth Social. That's his social media site that he runs. Basically blasting Chrystia Freeland. I'm going to read you the tweet here. It says, "The great state of Canada is stunned as the finance minister resigns or was fired from her position by Governor Justin Trudeau. Her behavior was totally toxic and not at all conducive to making deals which are good for the very unhappy citizens of Canada. She will not be missed!" Triple exclamation mark. So this is a reference to the role that Chrystia Freeland played during Donald Trump's first term in the White House, in which she was kind of the lead on negotiating over trade deals, the U.S. decision to put duties on Canadian-made steel and aluminum, and then ultimately the renegotiation of the NAFTA deal, which Trump insisted on, that later produced the U.S. MCA, or CUSMA, if you prefer that acronym. But she was quite obviously conducive to getting deals done because she got it done there. There was a lot of speculation that when Trudeau spoke to Freeland on Friday, that the position that he was going to ask her to take on, after removing her as finance minister, he wanted her to take on the role of kind of a go-between to the U.S., a sort of minister without a department. She would have not limited number of resources, but her role would be to be an interface.
But he's a good feminist, right?
Incoming administration. Obviously, that was not a role she wanted to take on. So in terms of the other reaction, though, we're going to be watching really closely over the next day and days and weeks for reaction from Liberal MPs. Trudeau spoke to them last night at an emergency caucus meeting. Chrystia Freeland was in the room, apparently got several standing ovations from other Liberal MPs. Trudeau apparently told the MPs that he needed some time to think, that he'd received the message. So does that mean he's going to go off over the Christmas holidays and think about his future and decide whether or not he's going to run again? Although all signs seem to be that he is still absolutely committed to running again, even though you have this increasing pressure on him from within his own party to step down. Karen.
Well, one of the most interesting lines, I think, in her letter was the part where she said that she intends to run again and stay on as an MP. Do you think she's leaving the door open here for perhaps her own future leadership bid?
Yeah, certainly Chrystia Freeland has been mentioned in the past as someone who could potentially be a candidate once Justin Trudeau leaves, a candidate for leadership of the Liberal Party. Despite that warm welcome she got from the caucus last night, I'm not sure how well regarded she is by her caucus colleagues. There was some tension between other MPs and Freeland over the 9 years she was in the cabinet. But yes, it's interesting that she is staying on as the MP for Toronto, riding of University Rosedale, and intends to run again in the next election. So who knows what's going to happen then? That's a relatively safe seat in Toronto. Downtown Toronto has been historically pretty good for Liberal candidates, although it was a by-election loss in another safe Toronto seat in Parkdale Hyde Park. That really kind of kicked in this growing mutiny within the Liberal caucus. MPs were really concerned about that, especially MPs in the GTA, which is supposed to be the Liberal Party's stronghold, and it looks like it's collapsing because they lost that riding. And we'll see about University of Rosedale when that comes around. But I think the interesting thing to watch over the next little while is how are other MPs reacting, and then look at towards into the new year when the House of Commons comes back at the end of January. What are the mechanisms that could force Trudeau out? Well, there's nothing really MPs can do to get him out as leader, but his government is very much at risk now. You had basically all the federal leaders yesterday criticizing Trudeau over this. Pierre Poilievre, of course, wants to have an election right now because his party is so high in the polls. Notably, he didn't really call on Trudeau to resign yesterday. He wants an election, and I think he wants to run against Justin Trudeau because he thinks Trudeau is so damaged. Jagmeet Singh also saying it's time for Trudeau to resign, but Singh not saying whether or not he wants an election. And of course, that's pivotal because Jagmeet Singh is the one person who, by leading his party to vote on non-confidence, could bring down this government. We still don't know if he wants to do that just yet.
I hate the fact that Jagmeet Singh is calling on Trudeau to resign, yet he's had multiple opportunities to call or vote in favor of non-confidence, and he's denied every single one of them. Over 3, in fact. He's an absolute disgrace, and he's holding 41+ million Canadians hostage to a government, to a prime minister that nobody wants and nobody has confidence in anymore. But hey, that's my opinion, folks. I would love to know yours. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, and since this is Canada, everybody in between. Now we're going to get into the last session of question period before they take off for the holidays. This is the season finale. I hope you folks are ready. I want to encourage everybody right now, before we switch screens and take a look at what's going on the House floor, to hit the like button. It's free to do. It gets more people into the streams. It helps grow the channel. Justin Trudeau doesn't like it. It's tax deductible for all I care. It helps fight climate change, and it would be a terrific Christmas present to myself and a birthday present since they're both on the same day. Now, let's get into this season finale, shall we? Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Hobbles along only with the support of his former babysitter for adult supervision. Recently in Halifax, the Prime Minister stated, the moment when Canadians actually get to...
We're going to go back and listen to that.
Powerful message to this Prime Minister and his partner, the leader of the NDP. The only question we must ask, are they listening? After 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, housing prices and rents have doubled. People struggle to afford food and heating. The Prime Minister has lost control of the border, immigration, and now the finances. Following his former finance minister's departure, this Prime Minister hobbles along only with the support of his former babysitter for adult supervision. Recently in Halifax...
He's referring to this right here.
The moment when Canadian...
He's referring to this. Dominic LeBlanc used to be Justin Trudeau's babysitter. FYI. You can't make this up.
Right to choose who can best lead us through these times of turmoil. Mr. Speaker, Canadians need and deserve a carbon tax election. I'm calling on the NDP leader to stop his shameful propping up of this Prime Minister who is way past his best before date. We need an election now.
Yeah! Can you guys throw some W's down in the chat? Dominic LeBlanc, Canada's new finance minister, used to be Justin Trudeau's babysitter. I shit you not. I showed you what's going on my X account because I posted it right there with an AI generated photo of Trudeau with a susu in his mouth. But yes, it is very much true.
The honourable member.
Let's get some W's in the chat. Used to be his babysitter and still is.
Before Christmas and all through this house, MPs dream of returning to home, hearth and spouse. Our stockings...
Widow baby Justin. Widow baby Justin.
Put them out there. There's fingers to point, random people to blame. But mostly I think of one person I'd name, and that's Rideau Cottage's middle-aged Swiftie, who through taxes, inflation, and budgets unthrifty, has crushed housing starts and caused rents to double. Perhaps in the end, he's one source of our trouble.
I don't have anything against babysitters. It's just that the Prime Minister was babysat.
But what if instead we stopped taxing new houses?
Yes, I'm for real. Yes, it is true. Believe it or not, that's up to you. But you're going to see, that's why an MP just talked about it, and you're going to see the media talk about it. But I wanted to bring that to you first, because that's what we do here on MSB and House of Canada. Widow baby Justin.
Member for Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, there's only one person keeping the Prime Minister in power, and that's the leader of the NDP.
The sellout leader of the NDP is not concerned about Canadians. He's concerned only about keeping the Liberals in power long enough so that he qualifies for his pension. The Liberal NDP coalition has doubled housing prices, doubled rent, and driven up the cost of groceries. Yet the NDP continues to support the carbon tax, voting for it over 24 times. And the costly coalition plans to quadruple the tax, further driving up the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating. Canadians who once gave to food banks are now lining up at those same food banks in order just to get by. Liberal MPs and Liberal cabinet ministers have stated they have no confidence in the Prime Minister. The Conservatives and the Bloc have no confidence in the Prime Minister. So who does? The leader of the NDP, counting down the days to secure his pension. The NDP should grant Canadians their Christmas gift, grant us a carbon tax election.
The honourable member for Winnipeg South.
Well, thank you.
This is going to be the last intro to question period, folks, for the year.
Modern treaty with the Métis government, the Manitoba Métis Federation. It was a historic day of celebration, reflection, and progress. A day that honored Louis Riel and all he fought and gave his life for. This achievement would not have been possible without the exceptional leadership of President David Chartrand, the greatest Métis leader since Riel. Today, we acknowledge the pivotal role of the Red River Métis in bringing the province of Manitoba into confederation. Today, we recognize the rights and self-government of the Red River Métis Nation, as well as affirm our commitment to reconciliation and collaboration. Working together, this agreement demonstrates the power of partnership, benefiting everything from housing to healthcare to cultural preservation. Finally, I want to acknowledge Canada's Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations and the Minister of Northern Affairs who worked tirelessly to move this treaty forward, marking a victory for the Red River Métis Nation, for Manitoba, and for Canada. Merci. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton.
Oh, Fergus is sick.
Mr. Speaker, as this year comes to a close, I want to take a moment and send my warmest wishes to everyone in Edmonton, Strathcona, and across Canada this holiday season. As we wrap up 2024, a year that was full of challenges, I want to celebrate the amazing people of Edmonton, Strathcona. Our community is full of people who volunteer, who support one another, who work together to make our community stronger. Each of you make Edmonton Strathcona special, vibrant, resilient, and I am so, so grateful for all that you do. The holidays are a time to rest, reconnect, and recharge, so whether you're celebrating with family, sharing laughter with friends, spending time with your neighbors, or just taking a moment to breathe, I hope that this season brings you joy, warmth, and some well-deserved holiday cheer. Let's make 2025 a brighter, fairer, and kinder year in our community together. From my family to yours, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Blessed Kwanzaa, and a very Happy New Year. Stay warm, stay safe, and we'll see you all in 2025.
À l'ordre, s'il vous plaît.
Order, please. The honourable member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, it's with great sadness that I rise today to acknowledge the sudden passing of Darlie Pierre-Louis, a town councillor in Mascouche. The whole community is mourning the loss of this kind-hearted lady who went through life with a smile and an infectious joie de vivre. Committed and involved in humanitarian causes, Darlie made the difference in people's lives. I knew her when she was my student, and she's always been the same, intense, a good listener, and a natural, positive leader. She was seen as a leader in occupational rehabilitation and the social economy in Lanaudière, and distinguished herself as CEO of the Job Access Buffet. A caring person, she looked after her community and even more so her family. Her husband, Carlo, and their 3 children, to whom I offer my most sincere condolences. Rest in peace, Darlie. We'll never forget you.
Last intro of the year. Trudeau's babysitter's here.
The honourable member for Battleford's Lloydminster.
The Prime Minister's debt is out of control.
You guys ready for this?
Set up the finance minister to take the blame. Just last Tuesday, this fake feminist Prime Minister boasted about appointing Canada's first female finance minister. Then on Friday, he fired her. But first, he expected her to deliver Mark Carney's fall economic statement. But why? Because the Old Boys Club crashed through their $40 billion guardrail, ballooning the deficit to $62 billion. This recklessness threatens our fiscal stability just as we face a possible trade war. Even the now former finance minister warned that we need to take that threat extremely seriously. That means keeping our fiscal powder dry today so we have the reserves we may need for a coming tariff war. Instead, Canadians are now paying $53.7 billion to service the debt. Because after 9 years of this Prime Minister's economic vandalism, it's Canadians who are the ones who always have to pay the price.
The honourable member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, I love this time of year. As a child, I have fond memories of tobogganing down my local park in downtown Toronto, eagerly counting down the days to
And updating your resume.
magical time of the year with caroling, gift giving, and gatherings where we share food and drink with those we love. It's also time to reflect and be thankful. I want to thank all the organizations who are on the front lines and work so hard to support our communities right across our country. Thank you. I want to thank the residents of my constituency of Davenport and my team and family for their ongoing love and support. Thank you. And I'm thankful most of all for this amazing country that we are all blessed to call our home. Thankful for our freedom, our care for each other, and our hopes and dreams for our future. To all my colleagues and all those in this house, wishing you a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and wishing for all peace and prosperity in the year to come. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. Questions on Honourable Leader of the Opposition, soon to be next Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Poilievre. Andrew Scheer.
It was a gong show at the bottom of a dumpster fire, wrapped up in a cluster. The finance minister resigns, the prime minister hides all day and then has to beg his MPs not to fire him. But the worst news, buried underneath it all, was a devastating gut punch to Canadian taxpayers. A $62 billion deficit smashing through the already insane $40 billion guardrail. Canada is a serious G7 NATO partner staring down the threat of 25% tariffs. We deserve a strong leader with a new mandate. Why not let Canadians decide by calling a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Finance and Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I want to start by thanking the Opposition House Leader for his heartfelt congratulations on my new role. I want to tell him, Mr. Speaker, and all Canadians, that our government is very proud of the fall economic statement that we made public yesterday. Mr. Speaker, the fall economic statement speaks to growth in the Canadian economy. It speaks to supporting Canadians with serious affordability challenges. It speaks to a declining debt to GDP ratio, the best in the G7. And Mr. Speaker, we haven't finished supporting Canadians, something the Conservatives aren't interested in doing.
That is Trudeau's old babysitter, ladies and gentlemen.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
Well, I'd like to congratulate the new finance minister for being the fourth finance minister in a 24-hour period. But it's the same old talking points. What they did yesterday was smash through that $40 billion guardrail. What does that mean? It now means that Canadians have to pay back all that money with interest, and 43 cents of every dollar you earn now has to go to pay the tax burden. More money to bankers and bondholders. In fact, the government's now spending more on the interest on that debt than on health care. But the Prime Minister doesn't care. He doesn't worry about where the money comes from. He's never had to worry about that. So why not let Canadians decide their future by calling a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect their government to be focused on their economic concerns. They expect their government to be focused on the real threat that 25% tariffs across the board would mean to the Canadian economy. That's the work that our government's doing. I can report, Mr. Speaker, I had an encouraging preliminary conversation with the Foreign Affairs Minister yesterday, with the Border Czar, with Mr. Homan. We look forward to working with the incoming administration on border security, something that the Fall Economic Statement generously supported yesterday. This is the work Canadians expect us to be focused on, and we're looking forward to doing that work.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
Yeah, they were so proud of that fall budget that they tabled it in the House and then ran and hid for the rest of the day. But let's recap. The Prime Minister announced $250 checks and then had to cancel them. He announced a 2-month GST tax trick that businesses say they want to implement, and the Prime Minister now says is optional. A broken immigration system, Parliament seized with a $400 million corruption scandal, all the while 2 million food bank visits, doubled housing costs, record high consumer debt, the dollar below 70 cents, and the Prime Minister raising prices by quadrupling the carbon tax. Yes. Again, why not let Canadians decide their future by calling a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Finance and for Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, as I said a moment ago, we're proud of the fiscal and economic record of this government. This is a record, Mr. Speaker, of supporting Canadians through the pandemic. This is a record of investing in entrepreneurship and innovation. This is a record in providing, for example, Canadians with $10 a day childcare, historic investments to speak to not only affordability issues, but growing the economy in a sustainable way. Mr. Speaker, this is work we're proud to continue to do for Canadians, and we find it unfortunate that it's the opposition that's trying to ground this House of Commons into chaos.
That's right. Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg. Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his ministers, of Liberal MPs and of Canadians, but he continues to cling to power. He and his top economic advisor, Mark Carney, forced the former Finance Minister to blow past her already out-of-control $40 billion fiscal guardrail, which was already out of control, as I said, and forced her to run a whopping $62 billion deficit. This Prime Minister has added more to the national debt than all Prime Ministers before him combined. This profligate spending contributes to inflation. People are suffering. When will he call an election? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, the fall economic statement was tabled in the House of Commons yesterday. It is an economic statement which talks about economic growth and supporting Canadians through difficult times with a high cost of living. The economic statement also discusses our responsibility to use taxpayer money and responsibly, to spend it responsibly. And, Mr. Speaker, that is exactly what we will continue to do, all while keeping an eye on exactly what support Canadians need from their national government. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. How can we believe the new finance minister? How can we have confidence in what he is saying when yesterday he wasn't even able to answer a journalist's question, what is the national debt of Canada? Now, the former finance minister said in her letter yesterday, and this is very important, I quote, "We need to keep our fiscal powder dry today so we have the reserves that we may need for a coming tariff war. That means eschewing costly political gimmicks, which we can ill afford and which make Canadians doubt that we recognize the gravity of the moment," unquote. That was her message, the message of the former finance minister to the Prime Minister, who never listens to anyone. Call an election now. The Honourable Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, our colleague has mentioned the government's deficit, but he knows that our debt to GDP ratio is declining, and we have the lowest debt to GDP ratio of all G7 countries. My colleague also knows that this government will support Canadians through difficult times. We've helped with $10 a day daycare. We've helped with the dental care program. Conservatives, in fact, voted against all of these programs. This is the time to support Canadians. We will continue to do so, and we will do so responsibly, as always.
I can't believe that was Trudeau's babysitter.
Mr. Speaker, I do congratulate the new Minister of Finance on his appointment. That said, there have been crises shaking this government for a long time, just crisis after crisis. Now there is a bad economic statement. We have a huge deficit. We also have money that the government should not have given out, that it cannot recoup. Now, we need to be strong in negotiating with the United States in the context of a significant political and economic crisis. How can this government still think it has the authority and legitimacy to do so? The Honourable Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I thank the Bloc Québécois leader for his congratulations. Our government is legitimate because our government has the confidence of the House of Commons. The House gave the government its confidence several times last week. As the Bloc Québécois leader said, we are still prioritizing supporting Canadians through tough times. We are also focusing on working with the Trump administration, which will come into office in January.
Trump doesn't like him or Trudeau,
or even eliminate the threat of tariffs. We will protect our borders and we will ensure that our economy succeeds and thrives. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The government does not have the confidence of this House. It does not enjoy the confidence of the House. It enjoys the NDP's weakness. That said, if the government feels legitimate in negotiating on Canada's behalf in a potentially very dire crisis for Canada, then why doesn't the government seek the support and confidence of Canadians with this leader or with another? In January, that can happen in January. They need the support of Canadians. And if they don't have it, then bye-bye. The Honourable Minister of Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, once again, Canadians expect that their federal government, working, of course, with provincial governments, work hard to protect the economy from the threat of tariffs. That's exactly what we have done since the dinner we had with President Trump in Florida. I must inform colleagues, Mr. Speaker, that I had some very encouraging and positive exchanges with Mr. Leitnik, Secretary of Commerce. Yesterday, as I said, we spoke with Mr. Holman, who is responsible for the borders. They're very open-minded, and I find it very positive. We will continue this good work.
For Burnaby South. People are right to be angry. We've got our Prime Minister who's more interested in protecting his own job.
Shut the hell up, Jack Meat.
Gets a threat.
I'm going to ask the honourable members, in particular the honourable member from Miramichi Grand Lake and the member from Dufferin Caledon, please, to not take their voices. I'm going to invite the honourable member from Burnaby South to start his question again.
People are right to be angry. They've got a Prime Minister who's more interested in protecting his own job than defending Canadians against Trump.
I hate this guy.
He's failed
Give me a break.
to defend workers from rich CEOs that the Conservatives love, who continue to rip off Canadians and drive up the cost of food and homes. The Prime Minister has failed. For New Democrats, it's always workers first and not CEOs. And not CEOs who the Conservatives want to defend. So will the Prime Minister acknowledge he has failed? He has to quit.
Order, please. The honourable minister, and leader of the government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this House voted in confidence of this government just last week on multiple occasions. Mr. Speaker, we have important work to do on behalf of Canadians. We have a very important relationship to manage with the United States at a pivotal time, Mr. Speaker, and that is exactly what this government is focused on doing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Burnaby Sud.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
On protecting CEOs to the harm of workers. The
Prime Minister is working harder to defend his own job than to defend Canadians from Donald Trump's threats. The Prime Minister failed to defend workers from CEOs who are taking all the money. This Prime Minister needs to protect workers, not CEOs. The Prime Minister has failed. Will he resign? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the NDP leader knows full well that last week we earned the confidence of this House on several occasions. Our government always works to protect Canadians, Canadian jobs, and the Canadian economy. Now, we're focused on that. And we are focused on properly managing our relations with the United States. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yesterday, the fall economic statement confirmed what former finance minister, the budget officer, and the Globe and Mail already told us, that this weak and now wounded prime minister hijacked the statement to drive Canada through the fiscal guardrail and over a cliff. $62 billion in overspending. That's 50% higher than their own target set just months ago. They told us over and over again that the deficit wouldn't exceed $40 billion. Simple question. Why did they mislead Canadians again?
Yeah, way to go,
Melissa. Put some W's down for Melissa.
And for intergovernmental affairs.
Mr. Speaker, far from misleading Canadians, the government thinks it's important to be transparent in terms of the fiscal picture of the government. That's why, Mr. Speaker, based on legal advice and accounting practices, the government booked contingent liabilities that increase the initial deficit projection to the level that my colleague referred to. Mr. Speaker, this is about righting historical wrongs with Indigenous peoples, something the previous government, Conservative government, ignored. And Mr. Speaker, we think the responsible thing to do is to be transparent with Canadians. That's exactly what we did.
That's right.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, of the Liberal ministers that still remain, not a single one would stick around yesterday to even defend the statement. They dropped it here and then ran out the door. $62 billion of new debt and new inflationary spending for Canadians to pay on their grocery bills, on their home heating, and on everything else. That's equivalent to spending $1 every second for nearly 2,000 years. The Prime Minister has clearly lost control of his caucus. He's lost control of his cabinet. He's now lost control of spending. So when will he give Canadians the chance to weigh in and call a carbon tax election?
That's right.
That's all we want. That's all. Oh, here goes champagne. Finance Minister for 5 minutes.
No lessons to learn from the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker. On the eve of Christmas, what we presented to Canadians, Mr. Speaker, it's no time for slogan. It's no time for smiles, Mr. Speaker. This is time for us to be serious. What the Minister of Finance presented yesterday was a fall economic statement which is focused on growth, investment in our workers, investment in our industry, and investment in Canada. Mr. Speaker, you know what? Because confident country invest in themselves, something that the Conservative could not understand. We'll stand for Canadians. We'll stand for Canada on this side of the House.
That side of the House is looking pretty slim pickings.
For Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, who is in charge of the clattering train? The Prime Minister has lost the confidence of Canadians, and now he's lost the confidence of his MPs and his cabinet. He's focused not on Canadians, but on himself as he clings to power. Yesterday, the government posted a $62 billion deficit, blowing through the guardrails. The government is careening out of control. Things are in complete chaos. When will we get an election?
Yeah. That's all we want.
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what the Conservative opposition is doing is they are focused on us while we are focused on Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We are focused on ensuring that we are delivering affordability measures for Canadians at a difficult time. We are focused on ensuring that we have a strong relationship with our most important trading partner, the United States. That is what this government is squarely focused on: Canadians, protecting the Canadian economy and protecting Canadian jobs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, not only did the statement post a $62 billion deficit, it revised 2025 growth down and it revised 2025 unemployment up. The Prime Minister has failed to recognize the gravity of the moment. He's focused not on Canadians, but on himself. His government is in utter and complete chaos. So when will the Prime Minister realize that the end is here, that his government and this Parliament is dead, and call an election?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board and Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, we have the lowest debt and deficit in the G7, Mr. Speaker, and in addition, in the fall economic statement, Canadians can see supports for affordable housing, supports for $10 a day childcare, supports for public servants who want early retirement, Mr. Speaker, because on this side of the House, what do? We support Canadians as opposed to what they do, which is cut, cut, cut.
Shut up. Shut up. Shut up.
L'honorable député de Louis Saint.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, we do, of course, congratulate the new Finance Minister. Just 9 years ago, in 2015, he, the Prime Minister, and everyone on that side of the House, they were elected promising 3 small deficits, and then in 2019, a $0 deficit. Then, a few years later, he posts the worst deficit in Canadian history, $62 billion. How can he look people in the eye and tell them that everything's going well? Can he, the new minister, tell the Prime Minister that he needs to call an election to determine whether or not he deserves the confidence of Canadians?
Ministre des Finances.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and of Intergovernmental Affairs. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for the congratulations. Now, Mr. Speaker, it will come as no surprise to you that we do not share his pessimism. We have a lot of confidence in the Canadian economy, in Canadian workers, and in the fall economic statement, which gave Canadians a lot of hope, especially as regards support to them during tough economic times. We've also announced very significant investments. I'm excited to talk more about them this afternoon. For instance, we are investing in our border to protect Canadians and also work with our American partners. We're here for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, it's Finance 101. A deficit is money that you don't have. $62 billion is money that we don't have. It's money that we're punting down the road to our children, grandchildren, and great-children who haven't even been born yet. They will have to pay for today's poor financial management. All Canadians knows that the Prime Minister is alone in his bubble. Canada has never before had a Prime Minister so narcissistic, selfish, and full of himself.
Wow.
Though, is that all Canadians, even those who haven't even been born yet, are going to have to pay for his poor management. When will there be an election so we can elect a good, strong, conservative government?
Drop some W's in the chat for that, man.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and of
Way to say it like it is.
Mr. Speaker, it will come as no surprise to our colleague that we disagree with the
Is he asleep here?
Conservative government, which would cut
What the hell's going on with our immigration minister?
that support Canadians. They voted against our $10 a day daycare program to help Canadian families. They voted against the Canada Dental Plan. Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect a responsible government. We're focused on supporting Canadians through economically, financially challenging times. This is what our government...
Literally nothing about yesterday was responsible.
Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Well, with a $62 billion deficit, we can all agree that it's no time to be offering election goodies. Yet, in yesterday's economic statement, 98% of the new money to combat the rising cost of living is the GST holiday. Worse still, this purely electoral measure represents almost everything the government is doing to tackle the cost of living between now and 2030. This 2-month tax break, which the former finance minister described as a costly political gimmick, well, this is the Liberals' long-term economic vision. If that's the long-term economic vision, do they understand now why Quebecers are calling for an election? The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know that the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives have been talking about elections and only elections since December. We have been supporting Canadians and Quebecers since 2015. That's why, for example, We put forward the Canada Dental Care Plan. It helps 1 million Quebecers. It gives them dental insurance that most of them never had before. Unfortunately, both the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois insist on being against the Canada Dental Care Plan. And in fact, the Conservative leader claims it doesn't even exist. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, it's very simple. The Quebecers, in fact, never wanted the GST holiday. What's more, the GST holiday is downright harmful to our small and medium enterprises. Yet it's the only element of the economic update to deal with the rising cost of living. And it accounts for 98% of new spending. The Liberals are out of steam. They've run out of ideas, and they're running out of resources, human resources, after the resignation of the finance minister, who is joining 8 other Liberal ministers who are jumping ship. Quebecers deserve better than a government that's falling apart and crumbling before their very eyes. Will the Prime Minister finally call an election?
That's all we want. That's all we want.
Honourable Parliament.
We're not going to know till the new year, though.
Minister of Finance. I think it's very obvious that the Bloc Québécois is against cutting taxes. But had they read the fall economic statement, they would know that we've created over 330,000 jobs in Canada. Well-paying jobs, Mr. Speaker. Canada has experienced the highest salary growth of all G7 countries. Canadians are bringing home paychecks that are 5% bigger, even after accounting for inflation, Mr. Speaker. We are making sure that Canadians' paychecks increase, Mr. Speaker. I'm hearing a lot of noise. A lot of noise from the back of the room.
His throat hurts.
Not everyone will start talking without having been recognized by the chair. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Once upon a time, economic statements contained measures. Today, they just contain bad news. What a contrast between the enthusiasm of 2015 and the cynical electioneering deficits of 2024. What a contrast between the solidarity of 2015 and the ministers who are jumping ship one by one. What a contrast between the Prime Minister who was a superstar in 2015 and the Prime Minister who tonight will struggle to get people out for his Christmas party. Mr. Speaker, it's over. That's it. That's all. It's over. Will the Prime Minister call...
Can we say it? Can I say it now that an MP said it? Can I say it's over? Are we allowed to say it?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised to hear my colleague talk like that. In the fall economic statement, if he had in fact taken the time to read it, there are significant investments for Quebec in the statement. For example, artificial intelligence, which will be at the very heart of the 21st century economy. As you know, Montreal has the most startups of anywhere in Canada. And in the statement, there are investments for Quebec, for industries, for workers. Mr. Speaker, we expect each and every member of Parliament to celebrate Canada. It's time to celebrate Canada. Thank you.
Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
The Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his caucus, of his cabinet, and of Canadians. The Deputy Prime Minister resigned because the Prime Minister said that he had lost confidence in her. A minister must speak on behalf of the Prime Minister.
That's quite the sparkle outfit, eh?
In making your decision, you made clear, I no longer credibly enjoy that confidence. Just last week, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was talking about how Americans have lost the ability for females to lead in that country. But the Prime Minister only uses females when it's useful for him. Isn't that right, Mr. Speaker?
Woo! Calls himself a feminist. Turns out he's a misogynist.
Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
No.
Honourable Member for...
She said no.
Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his cabinet, of his caucus, and Canadians. He blew through the $61.9 billion deficit over the $40 billion guardrails that he had set. The finance minister, she tried to warn him, and he fired her for trying to warn him. He offered her another position, and she refused. Why is it that this Prime Minister only has confidence in women until they question him? Exactly.
She's going off today.
Women and gender equality.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives keep bandying about the word feminism, but let's talk about tangible policies that are offered in the fall economic statement for women. $50 million to build more shelter spaces across this country, Mr. Speaker. $15 million for women's organizations whose goal it is to end gender-based violence, as well as permanent funding for the Sexual and Reproductive Health Fund. This is what it looks like to have the backs of women. Conservatives know nothing about that.
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
This Prime Minister has lost confidence of his cabinet, of his Liberal MPs, of Canadians as he clings to power. Hours before she was set to release the fall economic statement, the former finance minister quit, saying, quote, "On Friday you told me you no longer want me to serve as your finance minister and offered me another position in cabinet," unquote. The fake feminist Prime Minister and the conflict of interest carbon tax carney forced the former finance minister to blow through the $40 billion guardrail with a massively irresponsible $62 billion deficit, making her take the blame. Will this fake feminist Prime Minister take responsibility for his economic vandalism and call it an election?
That would be the smart thing to do.
Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
Peel off the Band-Aid.
Mr. Speaker, if Conservatives want to talk about feminism, then let's look at some facts. Let's look at some policies that actually support women across this country. Policies like $10 a day childcare. Policies like the National Action Plan to end
Does that only help women?
violence, which was actually supported in our latest economic statement, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives, by the way, opposed every single one of these measures. On this side of the House, we will always support women. Who knows what's going on over there?
Bravo.
That was a little sexist of her to say that.
The honourable member from Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, this Prime Minister has lost confidence of his cabinet, his Liberal MPs and Canadians as he clings to power. The former finance minister said, quote, "To be effective, a minister must speak on behalf of the Prime Minister and with his full confidence. In making your decision, you made clear that I no longer credibly enjoy that confidence and possess the authority that comes with it." It is clear that this fake feminist Prime Minister threw the former finance minister under the bus, just as he did with other women who previously stood up to him. Will this fake feminist Prime Minister take responsibility for his economic vandalism and call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are distracting from the fact that the Bank of Canada has cut interest rates 5 times down to 3.25%. Yesterday, our government published the fall economic statement, and I'm happy to share, Mr. Speaker, that it is an investment of $189 million into the Black Entrepreneurship Program that has already helped 16,000 Black entrepreneurs across this country. We are going to be investing in digital adoption for small and medium-sized enterprises of $500 million. We're going to reduce red tape. And, Mr. Speaker, while we're shopping during the GST holiday, let's support local. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
The caregivers pilot programs expired back in June. The minister promised caregivers permanent residence on arrival. 6 months later, no information, no application process has been released about this new pilot. Given the Liberals' about-face on regularization and scapegoating of migrants for their failures, caregivers are really concerned that their hard-fought promise of landed status on arrival will be forgotten. Will the minister deliver on this promise and open the pathway for applications by January 1st, 2025, or will this be another Liberal broken promise?
You guys notice that Freeland's not even there?
For immigration.
She's nowhere on the Liberal side.
Speaker, caregivers are extremely important to this country and to the care that they provide to our most vulnerable. We are still tracking to launch this, and clearly this is a priority of the government. This is on track. We may have some modifications to make, but this is still a high priority of the government. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
The Liberals' economic update failed to recognize the reality facing working Canadians. It failed to address the housing crisis. It failed to address the healthcare crisis. It failed to address the youth jobs crisis. Instead of fighting for Canadians, Liberals are fighting with themselves. And Conservatives only propose cuts that will hurt workers while big business gets tax breaks and handouts. Budgets reveal who governments are really working for. Why are Liberals, like Conservatives, working for CEOs while ignoring everyone else?
Yeah.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Call an election then, dipshit.
And that honourable member would know, because we worked very well together to create a national pharmacare plan that's going to make sure that Canadians
no more bow tie for
have
Holland.
access to the medication they need. And it builds upon a Canadian advantage that we need to maintain, an advantage that sees Canadians not only living longer, but living 6 years more in health than they do in the United States. The lifespan that we enjoy is every bit as important as every other measurement. And the advantage that we have in health cannot be lost. We must continue to drive forward and transform our health system from one based in illness to one based in prevention.
The Honourable Member for St. John's East.
Mr. Speaker, last week the government of Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec announced an historic agreement on Churchill Falls, as well as an agreement to develop the Gull Island project and upgrade other hydroelectric assets. This deal has the potential to transform Newfoundland and Labrador, create tens of thousands of jobs, and sweeping economic spin-offs. Can the Minister of Rural Economic Development inform Canadians how our government helped create the economic conditions to make this deal possible?
The Honourable Minister for Rural Economic Development.
Speaker, after decades, Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec have signed an historic agreement that will have huge benefits for all. Our government is working towards a net zero electricity grid and provided Newfoundlanders and Labradorians with assistance on rate mitigation. That, along with the investment tax credits for net zero projects, help create the conditions for this agreement to make Newfoundland and Labrador an economic and energy powerhouse. I congratulate both premiers on this historic deal, and
She's pretty insulated, eh?
see the shovels in the ground. Here, here.
The Honourable Brantford Brent.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has lost confidence of his cabinet, his caucus, and all Canadians as he desperately clings to power. Yesterday, the Liberals dropped their fall economic statement and literally ran out of the House. A $62 billion deficit, missing their target by a whopping 55%. The end result? Canadians are now paying more on debt interest charges than on health care. When will this Prime Minister end the misery, call a carbon tax election, so Conservatives can finally fix what they have broken?
The Honourable
Uncle Brock does not disappoint.
And Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I want to take the opportunity to inform the Justice Critic that, in fact, in that fall economic statement, he would have seen a series of measures that address community safety in our communities across the country. He would have seen measures that crack down on auto theft. He would have seen stricter bail and sentencing provisions. He would have seen provisions in the sex offender registries to get tough on child sex predators. He would have seen securing our borders to provide confidence to our American counterparts, cracking down on money laundering and terrorist financing. These are all measures that we all have an interest in promoting, passing, and getting funded in this country to keep Canadians safe.
The Honourable Member for Brantford Brant.
After 9 years of this Prime Minister's economic vandalism and inflationary spending, he has added more to the debt than all previous Prime Ministers combined. Now Canadians are paying more. Our national debt now sits at $1.24 trillion, an astronomical number that our future generations will have to deal with. Canada's promise of powerful paychecks, affordable housing, safe streets have all been shattered under the NDP Liberals. This Prime Minister has lost confidence of his caucus, the House, and Canadians. When will he call an immediate carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, that member is a former Crown attorney. He knows in terms of keeping communities safe, it starts with addressing the prolific amount of guns that are in our communities. What's in that fall economic statement? $597 million to take weapons off of our streets. What else is in there? Mr. Speaker, that member knows that organized criminality is a problem in Canada from coast to coast to coast. What we are doing with organized criminality is ensuring tougher penalties for financial crimes, cracking down on money laundering, and cracking down on terrorist financing. You get at the cause of the problem when you address the money flow. That's what we're doing in the fall economic statement. We wish we could have their support.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le Fjord.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his ministers, of his MPs, and
of everybody in the country.
But despite all of that, he is obstinately clinging to power. After 9 years of economic vandalism and inflationary spending, he's accumulated more debt than all of his predecessors put together. Result, Canadians are now paying $53.7 billion in interest on the debt. That's more than they pay every year for health transfers, Mr. Speaker. I'll say it again, more than for health transfers. Can the Prime Minister set his ego aside, think about Canadians, and call an election? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, I would invite my colleague to read the Fall Economic Statement, because if he were to do that, he would see that Canada is in a particularly good...
this is the last frame you're ever going to see Sean Fraser
G7
in Parliament right
counterparts. Now. Where they're expecting great economic growth next year. We've signed an agreement with the Government of Quebec for hundreds of millions of dollars to help the forestry sector in his region, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives hadn't said a word about that. When it's time to help Canadians, they are never present. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his ministers, of his MPs, and of Canadians. As if the $40 billion guardrail wasn't enough, well, they've given us a fall economic statement with a deficit of $62 billion. So much for the guardrail. Canadians are paying more in interest on the debt than they're paying for health care. He is desperately clinging to power. Enough is enough. When's the election?
Hey, look how hyped the Conservatives are. The Liberals look dead.
Minister of the Environment and...
This guy's sleeping at the bench, far end of the Liberal bench.
For Quebecers today with the publication of the Clean Electricity Strategy. That's hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to be invested in collaboration with Hydro-Quebec, with the Government of Quebec, and with businesses to develop the electric system that we'll need for the future to decarbonize our transit sector, to decarbonize industry and buildings. That's how we're going to build the economy and the jobs and the Canada of the 21st century. The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Well, we don't need more than 30 seconds to tell you what the Liberals' record is. The Prime Minister just did one thing this fall, and that's buy time. He bought time by letting the Conservatives paralyze work in the House without ever trying to negotiate a way to get out of this impasse. He bought time with his vote-buying gimmicks. He bought time, and he's continuing to buy time today since his finance minister quit. And doesn't matter what's going on, he buys time. But does he not realize that by doing nothing other than buying time, he's lost the respect of Quebecers?
Hey. I like to see even Quebec loses confidence.
Order. The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. And as she knows very well, we won the confidence of this House several times in the last few weeks, but I would like to maybe mention to her some points in the Fall Economic Statement that she maybe hasn't read yet, but if there's one element that she should be interested in, it's our support for culture, which is in the Fall Economic Statement. Our support for tourism to bring more conventions back to Canada. And Mr. Speaker, we should be proud of the investments that we've made in culture. The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Well, this session has been one session too many. The Liberals have monopolized attention, but not thanks to their work. They've refused to work for seniors and for farmers. They've refused to work to get rid of the religious exception. They've refused to work to guarantee Quebecers access to early requests for medical assistance in dying. Unfortunately, they have been focused on internal caucus fights. That's where their attention's been, and that's why the following question is on everybody's lips today. When are we going to get rid of this government that doesn't want to work for Quebecers?
Holy crap. Where's all this enthusiasm coming from the bloc?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism. Mr. Speaker, I would just like to highlight that on this side of the House, we are working for Quebecers. On this side of the House, we negotiate with the Government of Quebec to make sure that all the investments that we do are good for Quebecers. I'll just give you a couple of examples. The dental care program, the child care benefit. In the fall economic statement, there are rental help because the federal government pays to help renters. There's also investments in AI, housing, and, Mr. Speaker, it's this government that has done the work.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
This week, Liberal Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his cabinet, of his Liberal MPs and of Canadians, but he still clings to power. And yesterday, the economic statement from his phantom finance minister, Carbon Tax Carney, posted a $62 billion deficit, which is absolutely devastating for Canadians. And they tried to pin it on the finance minister, and she quit in protest. Canadians have had enough of these dirty Liberal backroom deals where Carbon Tax Carney gets all of the power but has none of the accountability. When will these Liberals call a carbon tax election? Because Canadians just can't trust them.
Mm-hmm. The Honourable President of the Treasury Board and Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, rather than talking down Canada, let's stress the facts. Inflation has come down to 1.9%, Mr. Speaker.
Exactly.
We have the
damage has been done, lady.
lowest deficit in the G7. In the fall economic statement, we put forward numerous measures to support businesses and families in Canada, including $10 a day childcare, which is going to give rise to 300,000 jobs, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we believe in supporting Canadians while maintaining a prudent fiscal outlook, something the Conservatives could never claim to do. Vive le Canada!
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Just like the 9 years of failures of this NDP Liberal government,
here comes the reality check.
Have lost confidence in this Prime Minister, and they showed it last night with the overwhelming majority election of Tamara Jansen in Cloverdale, Langley City.
Yeah, Conservatives won a massive by-election.
Finance Minister posted a $62 billion devastating deficit that Canadians are going to be paying for generations. These Liberals have absolutely lost control, and this flailing Prime Minister doesn't have the confidence of his cabinet, of his caucus, of Canadians. When's he going to call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the fall economic statement yesterday,
oh my goodness. Stop muting the mic. Come on. Let them debate. It's the last day, for crying out loud. Look at two grown men in robes talking to each other. Oh my goodness. This is why I started a petition.
Order.
Link down below in the description. Stop muting the mic.ca.
I remember it.
It's important for all members to ensure that they, especially male members, there are particular rules in terms of dress that is in this place. I am not certain that the sweater is a trop, but I'll invite the Honourable Minister perhaps to button up his jacket.
They're trying to get somebody to button up their jacket.
Speaker, we actually celebrate the 100th Canada Forest Service, which is something that I think all parliamentarians should be able to support. Mr. Speaker, in the fall economic statement, we're investing tax credits related to electricity production. It is part of building an economy for the future that will create jobs and economic prosperity across this country. It will ensure affordability for consumers. It will ensure reliability of the grid. And today, I am very pleased to say we are launching Canada's first clean electricity strategy across the country and the clean electricity regulation. It is an important for Canada.
They're calling him fat because he can't button up his jacket.
The honourable member for Cypress Hills.
The Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his cabinet, his Liberal MPs, and Canadians as he is desperately clinging to power. He forced the Finance Minister to join the ghosts of ministers past in favor of Finance Minister Carbon Tax Carney because they thought that her massive deficit wasn't big enough. With all the chaos he has caused around him, the Prime Minister's own inner circle is abandoning him. He went to the Governor General yesterday to appoint Carney's placeholder, but why didn't he go one step further and just call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Mr. Speaker, another element of the fall economic statement yesterday was the launch of the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program. That will make Indigenous peoples partners in projects across this country. It is part of building an economy that is inclusive and prosperous on a go-forward basis. On the other side of the House, we have a group that actually are a bunch of climate skeptics and climate deniers who have a plan for the economy that is based on the 1960s and looking backwards. On this side of the House, we are building a future for Canadians.
Oh my goodness. He's got to lose some weight. That is hilarious.
The member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We live in an increasingly virtual world, and it's our job to ensure that this online space is safe for our children and all Canadians. That's why our government introduced a plan to do exactly that in the Online Harms
Bill
Act.
C-63 or something.
Unfortunately, the Conservatives are blocking this important legislation. Their obstruction means that children, women, and minority groups remain in danger. I'm appalled that the Conservatives won't put Canadians before partisan politics and work with us. Can the Minister of Justice explain the consequences we face by not passing the Online Harms Act? Thank you.
For the second time today, I'm going to ask the honourable members from Grand Lake, Miramichi Grand Lake, and from Dufferin Caledon to please not take the floor unless the Speaker recognizes them. The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, last week in this place, the Conservatives blocked the child protection measures in the Online Harms Act from advancing. Worse still, the Conservatives have vowed that if we succeed in passing this legislation with the help of the Bloc and the NDP, they will actually reverse it at the earliest opportunity. What does this mean? That means if we get child sex abuse material off of the internet, if they took power, they would put it back on, Mr. Speaker. I wish I could make this up. That position is morally bankrupt. What I would say is that when you claim to care about victims of abuse, you need to stand up for victims of abuse. I would ask them to please do that.
Yeah, that's a weird little thing that they're trying to do. Trying to sneak it in there, eh?
Miramichi Grand Lake, apparently he was not the person who's website.
But it's mostly about online censorship.
That's by the tour.
Kind of greasy.
The honourable member from St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost all control. Not only has the Prime Minister long ago lost the moral authority to govern, the Prime Minister has lost his ability to carry out the basic functions of governing with the shambolic spectacle of his Finance Minister resigning hours before she was scheduled to deliver the government's fall economic statement. This is a government in complete and utter chaos. When will the Prime Minister admit that he has lost all control and call a carbon tax election?
Yeah. That's all we want. That's all we want for Christmas.
Housing, infrastructure, and communities.
Mr. Speaker, this may be the last opportunity I have to answer a question in the House of Commons as a minister, and I want to take an opportunity to say thank you to everybody back home in my community and all members of this House on both sides of the aisle for an opportunity to engage in debate over the years and to put competing ideas on the table. When it comes to the way that caucuses should operate, I would remind my honourable colleague, as one of the people who's written to advocate for his community to receive funding through the Housing Accelerator Fund, that he's now been banned by his own leader to continue to advocate on behalf of the good people of St. Albert, Edmonton. Mr. Speaker, it has been an honor to
Time's up. Cut him off.
forward to what the future may hold, and I want to say congratulations to a term well served by all colleagues.
It's his last day. It's his last speech ever. It's the last talking point he'll ever have as a MP. Even Conservatives are clapping.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of Canadians, lost the confidence of many of his MPs, and yesterday he lost the confidence of his Finance Minister. And no wonder, because after 9 years, this Prime Minister has broken everything. He's broken our borders, broken immigration, broken housing, and broken the budget. So, when will the Prime Minister just stop? Stop breaking things, acknowledge that he doesn't have a mandate to continue to govern, and call a carbon tax election.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
The fall economic statement that we tabled yesterday, Mr. Speaker, is about growth, and it's about investing in our business community and in our economy, Mr. Speaker. The accelerated capital cost allowance will ensure that Canadian businesses stay on this side of the border, stay in Canada, that our creation of jobs will continue to increase. 330,000 jobs were created in the last year alone, and these are good-paying jobs, Mr. Speaker. Even accounting for inflation, salaries have risen by 5%, the highest in the G7, Mr. Speaker. We're ensuring that Canadians bring home stronger paychecks and better jobs.
The honourable member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has lost the confidence of his cabinet, his Liberal MPs, and of Canadians while desperately clinging to power. Yesterday, they found a random Liberal minister to table the disastrous fall economic statement after he fired his finance minister, who wouldn't sign off on smashing through her $40 billion
That's so funny.
rail, all in order to make room for phantom finance minister Mark Carney. Will the Prime Minister has lost control of his own government. Will he call a carbon tax election today?
The Honourable Minister for Mental Health and Addictions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the other side of the House, they're big on outrage, but they're really weak on facts. When we talk about Canadians, we want to show that we support them and invest in them. We have the lowest ratio of GDP to debt in the G7.
You can do it without your script. Come on now.
We've been investing in Canadians. That's what you do as a government, Mr. Speaker. You invest in childcare. You invest in national school food programs. You invest in pharmacare because we invest and fight for Canadians. They will cut and they will talk Canadians down. On this side of the House, we are proud to fight for Canadians every single day.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, children in Canada need protection from online harm. The abuse that occurs online is endangering our kids, and it's time we act to prevent more families from being harmed. Our government has risen to this challenging, putting forward a plan to help parents and children. C-63, the Online Harms Act, creates safety measures that will save lives. The Conservatives are now the only roadblock to making the bill a reality in Canada. Mr. Speaker, the safety of our children should not be political. Can the Minister of Justice please discuss the importance of this critical legislation and why we need it passed now? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, this legislation will literally save children's lives. I find it very difficult to comprehend how the official opposition Conservatives can bear being the only party in this House obstructing the advancement of this legislation. I would share a question that was posed at committee by a mother whose child suffered horrendous abuse. She asked, quote, "What kind of person doesn't want to protect the future of our children or grandchildren?" End quote. Mr. Speaker, once again, I implore the official opposition to look beyond their self-interest and look at these parents and their children in the eye who need help. It's time we pass the Online Harms Act with unanimous consent.
Order. The Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has a shortage of family doctors. It's
a
crisis that is getting more and more severe each and every day. The Liberals seem to be focused on their own internal problems while parents are looking to get care for their sick kids. The former Deputy Prime Minister said as much yesterday when she resigned. And the Conservatives, sadly, just want to cut health care, cut health services and destroy public health care. Given the emergency, what is the Liberal government's plan to address this shortage and make sure we have more family doctors now in Canada?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what we have done is signed agreements with every province and every territory. We saw in the Kai-High baseline data last year that nearly every jurisdiction in the country saw more doctors, more nurses. It's not enough, but provinces have to do their part and have to be responsible for this health transformation. But I'll tell you, there's something huge this Parliament can do, and that's pass Bill C-72, which is a connected care legislation. Just one example of allowing something like AI Scribe to be used in our system would create the equivalent of 1,000 new doctors in a very short period of time. Connected care can open up new avenues of care, and that's something this Parliament can do.
The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Well, thanks to this Prime Minister, our nation has become the laughing stock of the narcissist at Mar-a-Lago. Our country is facing...
He says as he wears a watermelon pin to stand with Palestine.
Strong and proud defense of our values and our jobs. We're not going to get that from the Liberal gong show or from the predatory and pusillanimous conservatives who'd sell us out in a second. Our NDP leader called for a war room, bringing together Labour, business, leaders to defend Canada. So will the Liberals stop their squabbling? It's time to drop the gloves, go over the boards, and fight for our country instead of fighting amongst themselves.
Here. The Honourable Minister for International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for that question. Yesterday, we tabled the fall economic statement, and I think this is an area where the honourable member and I would agree. The Canada-U.S. relationship is extremely important, and in the fall economic statement, we are strengthening the regime to prohibit forced labor in our supply chains, something that is really important for workers in our country and to strengthen this trade relationship with our allies in the United States. Thanks so much, Mr. Speaker.
And so brings to an end to question period.
I recognize the honourable member for Berthier-Masquinongé, who is rising on a point of order. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Bloc Québécois wishes, before the House rises, to wish a Happy New Year and a Merry Christmas to all Quebecers, to colleagues and their staff, to all the staff of the House of Commons, to the clerks, the analysts, the pages, the Parliamentary Protective Service, the welcoming team at the cafeteria.
Everybody but Justin Trudeau. How about that? Let's just sum that up. All right. Don't leave just yet, folks. I know there are going to be some people that leave, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the new year back for more question period live streams. But Pierre Poilievre did a speech this morning, a very impactful speech, and I wanted to watch it before question period went live today, but we didn't have the chance. So we're going to take a look at that now. So anyone who wants to stick around and watch that Pierre Poilievre live stream, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at his speech. But for all of those that are, for everyone who's choosing to leave right now, thank you so much for being here for the question period live streams. Next year is going to be an incredible year. We've got some changes. We've got a lot of new things that are being thrown into the mix. So I look forward to seeing you all back again in 2025. And I'm being told that I should 100% stick around for some points of order. So we're going to do that. So never mind. Don't leave! Don't you dare leave!
$2 trillion.
Okay. You can't do that indirectly, but we can't do it directly. The honourable member from Edmonton Strathcona is rising on her feet on a point of order.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I also, on behalf of the New Democratic Party of Canada, wanted to take a moment as the season is upon us and as we are ending 2024 to sincerely wish all of those who help us do our work a very, very happy holiday season. You know, the people that keep this place running are so integral to all of the work that all of us do, and every single one of them makes sure that MPs can serve their constituents day in and day out. I'd like to make sure that we thank the table for their dedicated service. Thank you all very much. I'd like to thank the amazing pages who help us in this place every single day. The security personnel who work so hard ensuring that the security of MPs and staff is taken. Thank you very much to our Sergeant at Arms. The food service and cafeteria staff who keep us fed and supplied with coffee all day long. We all know that we need that coffee some days more than others. The maintenance and client service personnel who keep our offices clean and running, and our IT staff who answer our call after call, ensuring our phones, apps, computers are running. And of course, I think we can all agree our amazing interpreters deserve our very, very heartfelt thanks.
Interpreters, absolutely. Shout out to all the interpreters.
On behalf of all New Democrats, I want to thank everyone and hope they have a wonderful holiday season. I'm sure they're very grateful that we are having a break.
Because he works so hard, right?
Thank the honourable member, and once again,
Pierre's right-hand man, Just Raj Singh, is standing up.
House Administration, all its employees, thank all members for their kind wishes. The honourable member from Calgary Forest Lawn is rising.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you seek it, you shall find unanimous consent that, notwithstanding any standing.
So I did hear the request of unanimous consent, and I also did hear members saying no.
What the hell's wrong? That should be illegal to just block motions that are being put forward before you even hear them.
Kaya namin okaktitiye okarangin nina sivulang mikigaktok taka kovyasok veng me kovyasok kovaka Canada mi odlo kovyasok kovaka Happy New Year klugillo. First of all, I would just like to say very quickly happy holidays to my constituents in Nunavut as well as all of Canada. In the generous spirit of this season, I hope that if you seek it, you will find unanimous consent to the following motion.
No.
I heard the honourable member.
It goes two ways.
I also heard many members say no. I have the honour to inform the House that a message has been received from the Senate informing the House that the Senate has passed the following bill. C-79, an act for granting to His Majesty certain sums of money for the Federal Public Administration for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. J'ai l'honneur de faire savoir à la Chambre.
I have the honor of informing this House that the Senate has sent us a message to inform us that it passed the following bill, C-79, an act for the Public Federal Administration for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025.
I have the honor to inform the House that a message has been received from the Senate informing the House that the Senate has passed the following bill to which the concurrence of the House is desired. Bill S-15, an act to amend the Criminal Code and the Wild Animal and Plant Protection and Regulation of International and Interprovincial Trade Act. J'ai l'honneur.
I have the honor of informing the House that the Senate transmitted a message to the House to inform the House that it passed the following bill to which consent is needed. S-15, an act to amend the Criminal Code and
Fergus does sound sick. Sick in the head.
Wild Animal and Plant Protection Act, as well as regulation of international trade and interprovincial trade.
Ordre du jour.
Orders of the day, resuming debate on a privileged motion concerning the failure to produce documents pertaining to sustainable development technology.
No, that's it for the points of order.
The sub-amendment of Mr. Kelly.
Now they're getting into some weird back and forths, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to be filibustering and a bunch of bull crap. So we're going to go back to what I originally said we're going to do, which is take a look at Pierre Poilievre's speech that he did earlier this morning. So here we go, folks. Let's take a look at what Canada's next Prime Minister said earlier this morning.
That if you hire clowns, you get a circus. But no one should be laughing, because there are real consequences for yesterday's chaotic liberal clown show. These are the consequences. The deficit is 50% higher than we were promised. Our dollar has plunged below 70 cents American for the first time in ages, which means more expensive fuel, food, clothing, and materials for things like automobiles. It means our people will be poorer and the dollars they work so hard to earn are worth less.
I don't want to interrupt the mood or anything, but does that sound a little bit like Optimus Prime? I'm just putting that out there. If you kind of close your eyes or maybe look away and just listen, it sounds a little bit like some Autobots. I don't know if he's got a more bass in the microphone or what's going on, but I'm here for it. I like it.
The real consequences of yesterday's
Canadians
clown show
roll out
are playing out in tragedies right across this country. But before we talk about those tragedies, let's talk about this incredible, ridiculous, embarrassing Liberal Day on Parliament Hill. Let's capture the story here for a second. The world markets were watching to find out the size of our deficit. Remember, Chrystia Freeland, after helping Justin Trudeau double the national debt, add more debt than all prior prime ministers combined, said we can't go beyond the $40 billion guardrail, or else we'll go off the cliff. But throughout the year, with the prompting of Carbon Tax Carney, Trudeau's #1 economic advisor, he kept pushing his finance minister further and further leftward. More spending for this or that political gimmick, costly political gimmick, if I can use the words of Ms. Freeland. Again and again, he grabbed the wheel of the financial bus and jerked it to the left with the enthusiastic encouragement of Carbon Tax Carney. And as we were approaching the fall update, he grabbed the wheel entirely, jerked it to the left, smashed the bus through the guardrail and off the cliff. And then he thought he would blame Chrystia Freeland for it all and put in Carbon Tax Carney. They had a deal that he would take Chrystia Freeland's job. Well, when Carney saw how bad it all looked, he said, I no longer want the job. So just blame Chrystia Freeland and make her wear it all. Some feminist. The same week as Trudeau was insulting Americans for not electing a woman president, he was busy throwing his own woman deputy prime minister under the bus to replace her with a man. You can't make this stuff up. And then that man said, I don't want the job anymore. So the published order of precedent that the cabinet of the government of Canada had decided on was that the job would go to the industry minister, François-Philippe Champagne. He immediately resigned.
For 5 minutes.
Faster than you could even report that he had the job. The next person in the order of precedent was Randy Boissonnault. Remember the two Randys. The Randy who claimed that he wasn't the other Randy in order to cover up the fact that he was trying to take public money for his company while he was still a minister. The man who claimed wrongly Indigenous status and had to resign in scandal, well, he was temporarily the finance minister yesterday as well. And then we realized he couldn't have the job, so they gave it to Dominic LeBlanc. So yesterday we had 4 ministers of finance. On the day they were introducing this $62 billion deficit. Global markets took note, and the dollar plunged below 70 cents US, the lowest it's been in ages.
Since 1988.
Never once got that low under Stephen Harper. What does that mean? It means your dollar buys less fuel, food, clothing, and other internationally priced commodities all automatically become more expensive for Canadians. The dollars that our people work so hard to earn, that our pensioners contributed to their plans so much so that they could use, are worth less because of the chaos and clown show of Justin Trudeau and the NDP Liberals. And then there is the NDP. Yesterday, Jagmeet Singh had the audacity to claim that he thinks Trudeau should resign after Singh voted just last week to keep Trudeau in power. I put forward a non-confidence motion which would have fired Trudeau and triggered an axe-the-tax election.
Yeah.
And I put in that motion the words of Jagmeet Singh, and he voted against his own words. And now that those votes are behind him, he changes his story entirely. And of course, the media gives him an absolutely free ride, not questioning him at all on the obvious contradiction of claiming a man should be fired when you vote in the House of Commons to keep him in the job. The decision to call an axe-the-tax election is up to Jagmeet Singh, and Jagmeet Singh alone. He has got to end his hypocrisy and stop selling out the people and put his votes where his words are to trigger an election, to join with me in signaling non-confidence to bring down this government as soon as legally possible, using any means legally possible. And Jagmeet Singh, Justin Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, Mark Carney, all the days of their lives, the dramas about their jobs, their pensions, their titles, their interpersonal squabbles. It's all very entertaining if it weren't so tragic, because there are real dramas out there that matter. There are the dramas of the people who wake up in the morning to find their car is missing because it has been stolen due to catch and release bail.
Yep.
There's the drama of the mother burying her face in her hands because her child has become one of the 47,000 who have died of drug overdoses since Trudeau liberalized hard drugs. There is the drama of refugee camps opening up in Nepean, in Ottawa, that look like something out of a third world country. There is the drama of the 1,400 homeless encampments that these socialist policies have caused through high taxes, through blocking our resource projects, and through preventing homes from being built. There is the drama of the 39-year-old woman desperate to have kids, but unable to buy a home in which to raise them, her biological clock running out. There is the drama of the worker at the Labatt Brewery who told me that he is ashamed when he talks to his kids because he never sees them due to the 3 jobs he has to work just so that he can pay the rent. There's the drama of mothers and fathers sitting down with their kids saying, you cannot play hockey this year because our food, our energy prices have gone up. And there is the national humiliation of the President of the United States laughing at our weak, pathetic Prime Minister. What an embarrassment to all Canadians. Canadians are good, proud, decent people. We as a country were admired in this world before Justin Trudeau and the NDP Liberal government.
That's right.
People came from around the world to call this place home because they knew there was no better place. They were handed a flag when they got a citizenship and told, congratulations, you live in the best place on earth. You've just won the lottery of life. There was a promise in this country that anyone from anywhere could do anything, that hard work would get you a powerful paycheck and pension that bought affordable food and homes in safe neighborhoods. That promise is broken. But the good news is we're going to bring home that promise. We need to trigger an axe-the-tax election as soon as possible so that we can elect a common-sense conservative government that will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. But more than that, a government that will bring our people together, unite all of us, Liberals, Conservatives, New Democrats, the people of this country, the common people, around our common values, our common sense, our common history, and our common optimistic future. Most of all, we need a leader with the brains and backbone, the strength and smarts to stand up for us on the world stage, to face down the threats of tariffs and the leaders around the world and make our country proud again. In essence, we need to make Canada strong and free. Canada first, Canada last, Canada always. Let's bring it home.
Thank you. We'll now take questions from the floor.
Man, he is good at that. Holy smokes.
English. Rami Botros, Oxygen Media. Thank you, Mr. Poilievre, for being the first and last line of defense for the Canadians after the failure of Trudeau's government to provide proper living for his citizens, as well also Mr. Sigmead, that he always worked for himself and never accept your call for no confidence vote. January 20th is a scary date for the Canadians because of the tariff that Mr. President Trump will impose on the exports of Canada. What are the most dangerous impact economically and politically on Canada? As we see, there is no clear plan how to face this 25% tariff. Thank you.
Look, we sell more than twice as much to the Americans than we sell to the rest of the world combined. The United States is the biggest economic and military superpower the world has ever seen. They happen to be our neighbor and our friends. They have a president with a strong and fresh mandate. And he's someone who is a very powerful negotiator who can spot weakness from a mile away. And what does he see when he looks at Justin Trudeau and the NDP Liberal government? He sees a ridiculous clown show of chaos, and that screams weakness. President Trump has made it clear that he wants our jobs and our money. Justin Trudeau's chaotic clown show will only help him get it. We need a strong leader who will negotiate with backbone and brains, who will slash taxes, bureaucracy, and red tape to unleash free enterprise here in Canada so that our workers and our entrepreneurs can bring home the hundreds of billions of dollars that Trudeau's socialist policies have driven south. We need to rebuild our military, reinforce our borders, and negotiate a deal with President Trump that is good for both our peoples, that makes both Canadians and Americans stronger, richer, and more secure. And only the common sense conservatives have the strength and smarts to put Canada first.
Thank you. Next question.
Hey, Pierre, this is Shu BM with Y Media.
Thank you.
I'm sure you also saw Trump's tweet yesterday regarding Chrystia Freeland, calling her totally toxic and she will not be missed. Could I please get your thoughts on that?
C'est clair que Justin Trudeau est vu comme étant une clown à travers le monde.
Okay, we're going to skip this part.
Canadien. Il y a des conséquences. La vie devient. On garde le premier ministre de au Canada avec force le Canada de l'immigration. D'abord, President Trump just shows that yesterday's post by President Trump just shows that Justin Trudeau and his chaotic clown show makes Canada weak. Trudeau's lost control of everything, lost control of borders, lost control of immigration, lost control of spending, inflation, and debt. And Canadians are paying the price for this chaotic NDP Liberal clown show. Everyone is laughing. All around the world, Trudeau and the NDP Liberals are seen as ridiculous. The price, though, is in smaller paychecks, higher costs, fewer jobs, more crime, chaos, drugs, and danger. But the good news is that Canadians can elect a common-sense conservative government with a leader who has the brains and backbone to face President Trump, who has a plan to unleash the productive forces of our workers and entrepreneurs to bring home our money and defend our economy, and to take back control of our borders, immigration, spending, and everything else, so that we can put Canada first.
Thank you. Next question.
Ithel Musa with CBC News. And Mr. Poilievre, if you could also answer this question in French as well as English. The government is coming out with a $1.3 billion plan to address border security. Do you think that's enough to stop Trump's tariffs? And if it was up to you, how much specifically would you spend on border security? What number would you put on it?
Well, you ask a classically CBC question, which is how much money can you spend on a problem?
That's a good answer.
Well, that's the wrong question. That's exactly the question Trudeau has been asking for 9 years. It's the reason he's doubled our debt while making everything worse. For example, he spent $80 billion on housing affordability. Well, how'd that work? He doubled housing costs. He spent $60 million on his gun confiscation. 0 guns. He spent millions on a school food program that hasn't served a single solitary meal. So we should not judge a program based on how expensive we can make it. We should judge it by what it can do. How many helicopters? How many drones? How many boots on the ground? That's the question I will be asking when I'm Prime Minister. And how do we deliver it for the lowest possible price to taxpayers? Wouldn't it be nice if we had a Prime Minister who said, we secured the borders, we put more boots on the ground, we stopped tons and tons of fentanyl from traveling back and forth, we arrested the terrorists, we shut down the organized crime, we reduced gun crime, and by the way, we did it with less tax dollars. That's how our mentality has to change. We have to stop judging politicians by how expensive they can make things and start judging them by the results they get. You went into a restaurant and had a terrible experience, the food was awful, you got food poisoning, the service was bad. You wouldn't walk out and say, but it was great because it cost me $1,000. And because it's the most expensive restaurant around, it must be the best. No, we judge the meal by the food on the plate and the service that delivered it. That's how I'm going to run a common sense conservative government. Next question.
What a phenomenal response. What a phenomenal response. This guy is built for the job, I'll tell you. Holy smokes. Let's skip to English, shall we?
L'argent, les gens terroristes. Le fait que
The next Prime Minister, what are you doing to reach out to Trump and the Republicans to build relations and, fight against their tariff plan?
Well, I need to become Prime Minister so that I can stand up for our country, put Canada first. Right now, this is why we need an axe the tax election as soon as possible. Because every minute that goes by, we have a U.S. president with a strong mandate, who is a powerful negotiator, who can spot weakness from a mile away. And when he looks across the 49th parallel, he sees a man who's lost control of everything. A weakling who's lost control of our borders, lost control of immigration, lost control of spending, debt, inflation, housing costs, crime, drugs, lost control of his caucus, and yesterday lost control of the most senior levels of his own cabinet. Now the president will see this weak, pathetic leader flailing around in a chaotic clown show, and that will only cost Canadians in these negotiations. That is why it is an emergency that we get an axe the tax election to elect a common sense conservative government that will unleash the productive forces of our workers and entrepreneurs to bring home billions of dollars. That with a strong, smart leader who has the brains and backbones to face Trump across the negotiating table, with a plan to take back control of our borders, our immigration, our spending, our future. And that's what common sense conservatives will do when I put Canada first.
Next question, and this will be the final question.
I feel like I could listen to his answers and speeches for a long time.
This will be the final question.
On n'a pas eu une question en français.
Okay, my name. I guess we're battling over it. I'm going to tape this because I've never had that happen before.
Attends, est-ce qu'on aura une question?
I thought this was a news conference. Yeah.
You can tape it all you want. Or just a quick question. Did we get any in French yet? We need some French questions. Oui, il nous faut une question en français. Au moins une question.
En effet, en français, Jérémy Bergeron de Radio-Canada.
Okay. Je trouve ça
Radio-Canada.
démocrate seul choix.
So he's asking in French.
Into electing them for the NDP est conservateur
and now it's in
qui
English.
Va reprendre le contrôle de nos frontières, de l'immigration, des dépenses, des dettes et de l'inflation et mettre le Canada d'abord. I want to repeat that in English. The question was about the NDP Liberals right before the election putting in a new face to try and trick Canadians into electing them for a fourth time. This is the height of hypocrisy. All these Liberal MPs are hypocrites. You know, they said that they supported Trudeau. They voted to help him double the debt, double housing costs, double gun crime by releasing criminals onto the street, double food bank use with carbon taxes. They voted to quadruple the carbon tax 60 to 61 cents a liter over the next 5 years. They all did that with the support of Carbon Tax Carney, who is currently the personal economic advisor to Justin Trudeau. So for them to suddenly just change the face and try to pretend that they weren't around the last 9 years is a total fraud. If you want a change from the disastrous, costly, wasteful 9 years of the last NDP Liberal government, you have only one choice. It's the common sense Conservatives who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, stop the crime, who will take back control of immigration, the borders, and spending, inflation, and debt. A common sense Conservative government to put Canada first. Now let's bring it home.
Thank you. This will be
Wow, there you go, folks. There you go. There's what Pierre Poilievre has to say in his solo speech with no cue cards, no teleprompters, just off the cuff. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of the season finale. That's it. While this was going on, they actually voted in the House. And here is a little bit of that vote. I was able to screen capture this. Chrystia Freeland voted yay, and so did Justin Trudeau. They voted in favor of a motion that this House do now adjourn. And the outcome of the votes was 177 to 140 for yays. So politicians now have gone home, and they will be back January 27th, 2025. So what does this mean for Canadian politics? What does this mean for the news between now and then? Well, things are going to lay low a little bit, right? Does that mean that you should stop coming back to the channels? I don't think so. I think you should still stay informed. There's still some very entertaining things that are lined up between now and then, but things will take a bit of a dive and be a little bit less chaotic, and it's just kind of going into limbo right now. But again, we don't know what tomorrow is going to look like. We don't know what tonight is going to look like. For all we know, there could be emergency press conferences. There could be more resignations by posts on Twitter or X. Like, who knows what the heck is going to happen? That's why it's important to subscribe to this channel and Mr. Sunshine Baby and turn on post notifications so you can be notified of upcoming videos and emergency live broadcasts or streams. Ladies and gentlemen, though, this is where we're going to end this particular stream. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. It has been a very fun ride. I've had a lot of fun. I hope you have as well. I think that we've really built and cultivated a good community here on House Canada on these live streams. We're now getting consistently thousands and thousands of viewers and dozens of thousands of chat messages that go live. So while you guys are watching live in the past 2.5 hours, there's been over 15,000 chat messages. So that's a lot. Yesterday, we actually hit the all-time record. During the live stream yesterday, there was over 59.6 thousand messages in the live stream. So pretty awesome to see this many people within the community are engaging, right? But everything that's good does come to an end. And unfortunately, this is not goodbye. It's see you soon, not to sound like a Hallmark card, but this is where we're going to end the stream, everybody. So I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for engaging in the live streams, engaging in the community. The super chats are phenomenal, and I will spend the last couple of minutes here reading off the super chats. But for those that don't want to listen to that, it's not goodbye. It's I'll see you soon. To sound like a Hallmark card, eh? Alrighty. Let's see where we left off. JL with the 5. Big brain idea. Merge USPS and Canada Post once Trump and Poilievre privatize them both. Oh, that ain't too bad. That ain't too bad of an idea. Dad talks with a $6.99. I deliver for Pure later, and the lack of love for myself and my brothers and sisters with FedEx and others is terrible. I've been working 14-hour days. Holy crap. Well, thank you for doing that. That is very much appreciated, and Canadians, thank you for that. JL with a 2. American. I know it's a meme, but would you be down to be the 51st state? No comment. Baines Basement with a $6.99. Your birthday buddy is Trudeau. My baby's nephew is Terry Fox. Sad you get to have his on your passport, but he's going to be stuck having yours. Yup. Josie Coat with a $6.99 saying noob as a super sticker. Okay. Kenzie Kraken with a 5. Freeland dissed Trump during NAFTA by going to Pride Parade instead of a Trump event. She has demolished every ministry she has had. I didn't know that. At least I didn't know that off the top of my head. So that's good to know. Thank you for sharing that. Coney Smile with a 2. He is no man not to be recognized her for her job. I feel like somewhere in there's sense to be made, but I don't see it. But thank you. Kenzie Kraken with the 2. Carney is godfather to her kids. He is her boss, in reference to Chrystia Freeland. Andrew LePence with the 2. Both Trudeau and Freeland and George Soros are patsies. Oh, see that. Jody Robinson, the $1.99. Hit the like button, fam. Hey, I'd appreciate that. That'd be pretty sweet. Let's see. Okay. A lot of them aren't loading anymore, folks. A lot of them aren't loading. I don't know what happened, but I see a couple more. Matt Burrill with the $27.99. Saying Pierre Poilievre's speech this morning on his YouTube. Bring down the government as soon as legally possible using any legal means possible. Why would he use the words legal? I think that's just to avoid any like storm the Capitol type of rhetoric, right? Which obviously is something that we don't condone here. And then Matt Barrell, again with the $27.99, but no message attached. Christian Rose, the $13.99. Ryan Moore with the 5. Castillo with the 2. Trudeau sees the world through a distorted lens. Can they call for a vote of non-confidence today, says Brian. No, they cannot, and they have not, and now they're done. Konis Ma says, happy birthday, Jasper. Enjoy your day. Thank you. Yeah, for those that didn't know, here, hold on. The Poor Man's Poet, the 10 Americans, saying, bro, please tell me it's a joke, troll, or euphemism. No. So that's in reference to, what the hell is his face there? Dominic LeBlanc, the new finance minister, is, or I guess was, a long time ago, Justin Trudeau's babysitter. So, yes, that's a real thing that has happened. And yikes, for sure. Folks, this is where we're going to end it for Reels this time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks for all the super chats. Thanks to the new members. Thanks for liking and engaging on the stream. I'll see you guys in another live stream, maybe later in January. That's the scheduled one. But nonetheless, unless there's an emergency broadcast, that's when I'll see you guys live on this channel. So thank you. Tune in whenever is possible. Subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications. And I'm filibustering because I don't want to leave because I fucking love sitting here talking to you guys. But all good things come to an end. It's not goodbye. It's I'll see you soon.